The City Council will meet on Thursday, December 8th, 2022 at 7 o'clock p.m. in the City Council Chambers, City Hall, 93 Washington Street, second floor, to hold its regular meeting for the purpose of discussing any and all business, including the public hearing for the fiscal year 2023 tax rate. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch, listen, or provide comment remotely during the meeting may do so in the following manner. Please click on the link found in the agenda, password 386274. Go to the website link, zoom.us/join. Enter meeting webinar ID 876-6722-7987, followed by the meeting password above if directed to do so on screen. Or by phone, participants can dial a toll-free number at 877-853-5257 or 888-475-4499. When prompted, enter meeting webinar ID 876-6722-7987 and follow the instructions to join the meeting. For those dialing in, you may press star 9 to raise your hand to speak if signed up for public testimony or to participate in the public hearing portion of the agenda. You can watch the meeting live on SATV on Channel 22. Members of the public wishing to speak on the agenda items must follow the how to sign up for public testimony outlined on the agenda below. Members of the public wishing to speak during the hearings designated as public hearings may do so by following how to participate noted above. A regular meeting of the City Council is being held remotely on Thursday, December 8th, 2022 at 7 o'clock p.m. for the purpose of transacting any and all business. Notice of this meeting was posted on December 6th, 2022 at 9:55 a.m. This meeting is being taped and is live on SATV. Councilors absent are Councilor Dominguez and Councilor Watson-Felt. Council President Morcillo is presiding. Councilor Cohen moved to dispense of the reading of the record of the previous meeting. All those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. I now request that everyone please rise to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilor Riccardi.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are now at the public testimony section of the agenda, and tonight we have one person signed up, Chief Dion. If you'd like to approach the microphone, please, for everyone in the room, if you're going to speak at the microphone, you need to talk right into it.
Thank you, Councilor Marcello, and fellow and councilors. Let's see how this goes. All right. I put my name in to speak on behalf of the agenda item regarding the mayor's proposal for free cash to fund half the purchase cost of a new ladder truck. You've all received my letter. I hope it was enough information that you could understand what the request is about. I got into it from how we got here, where we're at now, and where we're heading. So I won't cover all that material. I just want to speak to the somewhat urgent nature of tonight's vote. We have a ladder available. The general lead time is 24 to 30 months for a ladder to be manufactured. In particular, ladders that can fit in our city and in our older station, those are incredibly hard to come by. Of the 7 manufacturers that were polled, only one manufacturer is presently making ladders without customizing them. That'll fit into our station. So there's a manufacturer, Pierce Manufacturing. I mentioned them in the letter. They have what's called a stock metro ladder. The stock metro ladder is made for older cities with small streets and, of course, small stations. We need a ladder that'll get into Station 4, and there's just nothing out there to do that. And lo and behold, they have one on an assembly line. Springfield just took possession of one. I have a picture here if anybody wants to come over and look at a fire truck. But it's the exact same truck that Springfield bought. It's called a stock truck, meaning it's already designed. They have all the materials in stock that they need to build that ladder, and they have everything on hand to keep it moving through the assembly line in a timely manner. So therefore, they're not afraid to put it on assembly line where it might hold up other vehicles behind it. So that's encouraging, since we're looking at 24 to 30 months to replace a ladder that just recently failed, or we could have something by July or August. So tonight's vote, somewhat important. If we could fund this initiative, I think it would be a great item, not only for the fire department, but of course for the Salem as a community. I appreciate the continued support of the council, and I ask that you support the mayor's request for the free cash. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. That concludes the public testimony section of the agenda. Hearings.
The public hearing on the issue of allocating the local property tax levy among the 4 property classes for the fiscal year 2023 and the residential open space and small commercial exemption options.
So with us tonight for a presentation, we have Mayor Driscoll in a moment. We have Anna Friedman, who is the finance director. We have Stephen Cortez, the city assessor, and he has brought with him a member of the Board of Assessors. So.
I can't see, it's too far. Good evening, council members. I would like to start by introducing myself and the assessing team to those who might be new or have not gone through the classification process, and to briefly explain some of the assessing department's duties throughout the year which brought us here. I'm Stephen Cortez, Director of Assessing. Tonight we have one of our 3 board members, Tina Zolano, here with us, along with 2 assistant assessors, Jim Bond and Jim Hall. Throughout the year, we have conducted about 1,400 property inspections for reasons such as recent building permitted work, sales, and the DOR mandated cyclical inspection program, which is an attempt to inspect every property on a 9 to 10 year basis. Within that amount of time, things can change, grow, depending on maintenance and/or depreciation. We also gather information about the different classes of properties by utilizing our sales verification forms, income and expense forms, and a personal property form of list. This information presented to you tonight is an accumulation of the vast data we've gathered and is a reflection of the market during a snapshot of time. There is a lot of content in this packet, so I will direct you to the most important pieces as we go through the slides. Hopefully, the additional information will help give you a bigger picture and context. Page 2, tax classification. The purpose of the classification hearing is to provide information to the City Council in order for them to make policy decisions in accordance with the requirements of Chapter 40, Section 56 of the Massachusetts General Laws, as amended by Chapter 200 of the Acts 1988. There is an excerpt from that which lays out that cities and towns may elect to shift the tax burden among the major property classes within certain limits established by law. The residential factor governs the percentage of tax levy to be paid by the residential class. The difference is then shifted to the commercial, industrial, and personal property class, or CIP. The minimum residential factor established by the Commissioner of Revenue is used to make certain that the shift or the tax burden complies with the Classification Act. It is recommended that the City Council adopt the minimum residential factor of 0.857132 for the City of Salem for fiscal year 23. The Council must also vote on 3 other options: open space discount, residential exemption, and a small commercial exemption. This year is an interim certification year, and the assessments have already been approved by the Department of Revenue. The statistical data presented herein is intended to assist the City Council in its recommended decisions for the tax rate shift and the three options I mentioned. Page 3, key terms. Here are some key terms that you will see in the presentation. The levy. The property tax levy is the revenue a community can raise through real and personal property taxes. Levy limit. The maximum amount a community can levy each year, equal to last year's levy plus 2.5% plus new growth and any debt exclusions or overrides if applicable. Levy ceiling. The maximum amount the levy limit can be in a given year, equal to 2.5% of the total full and fair cash value of all taxable real and personal property in the community. The levy limit is equal to the lesser of the two. New growth. Increase in the tax base due to new construction, parcel subdivisions, condo conversions, and property renovations, but not due to market revaluation. It is calculated by multiplying the increased assessed value by the prior year's tax rate for the property class. Excess levy capacity, the difference between the actual levy and the levy limit, what a community is legally permitted to bill and tax bills to be paid. Page 4, city overview. The first pie chart on the left shows the breakdown of the city's parcel by major property classes as a percentage. Residential makes up the majority with 89%, followed by personal property with 6%, commercial at 5%, and industrial at 1%. The chart on the right represents a breakdown of all real property, which does not include personal property, and shows a more in-depth view of the residential class, which single families at 5,018 parcels make up the majority at 38%. Followed by residential condos with 4,667 parcels and 35%, the remainder being two families at 11%, commercial at 5%, three families at 4%, apartments over 4 units at 3%, land and accessory use at 2%, and industrial and mixed use at 1% respectively. Page 5, analysis. The fiscal year 23 values are based on the value of properties as of January 1st, 22. And were primarily developed from valid arm's length sales from calendar year 21, which do not include foreclosed family sales, estate sales, etc., personal property form of lists, and income and expense forms from commercial, industrial, mixed use, and apartments with 4 or more units. Under the guidelines of the Department of Revenue and Massachusetts general laws, assessors are required to assess property at 100% full and fair cash valuation. This means all assessed values must reflect the market, i.e. what properties are selling for, size, type, year built, and quality of construction, number of rooms, kitchens and baths, fireplaces, types of heating systems, etc., are all examples of the data listed on individual property record cards before the valuation process can begin. Assessors may not have to go inside each property before every revaluation if records are kept up to date and building permits are checked and recorded for changes on individual properties. Finding the full and fair cash value of or market value of a property involves discovering what similar properties are selling for, what the property would cost today to replace, and what financial factors, such as interest rates, may affect the real estate market. Valuation techniques for commercial and industrial properties also include analysis from an investment point of view, since the purchase price the buyer is willing to pay depends in part on the return they expect to receive. Like property is extrapolated and compared within the class, apples to apples. Sales in calendar year 2021, which are used to determine 23 values. There were 759 sales utilized, including 2 years of sales for mixed use and industrial and land, 217 single-family sales, 398 residential condo sales, 115 multifamily sales, 15 commercial and industrial sales, 14 other mixed use. Page 6, analysis adjustments. The market analysis resulted in the following general adjustments made. Single-family properties increased in value by 11.1%. Residential condos increased in value by 14.2%. Two-family properties increased in value by 4.8%. Three-family properties increased in value by 6%. Apartment buildings with 4 or more units increased by 16.8%. Personal property accounts increased in value by 2.9%. And commercial properties increased in value by 5%. Sales during 2021 were reflective of the low interest rates as COVID had an impact during this time. Limited supply versus increased demand resulted in bidding wars and offers above listing prices, which was frequently listed on the return sales verification questionnaires we sent to all buyers. Compared to last year, when the 2 and 3 families were higher, this year the singles were higher, as this was the market trend. Again, the impact of vacancies and rent concessions play a factor in this as well. It is important to note that these are overall statistic values for each major property class. Individual value changes will vary depending on specific property data, style, condition, upkeep, depreciation, location, amenities, etc. Overall, the city saw an increase in total value of $723,116,740, or 10.2%. Page 7, value comparison. This table is a comparison of last year's fiscal value, FY22 versus FY23. These values and the changes represent the entire class, not individual parcels. Highlighted in yellow are the major classes with columns 3, 4, 5, and 6 representing the parcel count and assessed values, and the last 4 columns showing the differences between them. As shown on the last slide, the percentage difference in value is identified on the far right column. At the bottom, shaded in blue, are the major classes as a whole, with the total residential value going up 11.1%, total commercial value going up 5%, total industrial going up 9.3%, total personal property 2.9%, and again, overall value for the city went up 10.2%. Page 8, values by class. This table shows the fiscal year 23 values by class. The residential total is $6,558,258,053. The commercial assessed value total is $641,590,725. The total industrial assessed value is $375,963,052. And the personal property total assessed value is $265,961,700. That gives the city a total taxable value of $7,841,773,530. Page 9, percentage of value by class. Here's another fiscal year comparable display of FY22 versus FY23. The residential class makes up 83.63% of the total city value. Commercial makes up 8.18%, industrial 4.79%, and personal property 3.39%. Again, the value difference from last year is 10.2%, or $723,116,740. The bar graph at the bottom shows a healthy and sustained change in value over the past few years. 2020 was higher due to the power plant coming online. Page 10, assessed value history. Here is a line graph showing the assessed value history from 1994 to 2022. You can see the dip where the recession happened and the rebound after that affected the residential values. Page 11, new growth. Throughout the year, the assessing department reviews and captures new growth value due mostly to new construction, as well as parcels subject to taxation for the first time, such as subdivisions or condominium conversions, new personal property accounts, and parcels that were previously exempt. It does not include value increases caused by normal market forces or by revaluation. New growth is submitted to the Department of Revenue for review and certification. The City of Salem saw a total of $110,241,865 in new growth value. That included but was not limited to 48 new single-family lots, 136 new condo conversions, the majority at the Bricks building, 5 exempt properties that are now taxable, large construction projects which include 435-443 Highland Ave, the new storage facility under construction, 41st Street and 45 Traders Way, 212 apartment units and a commercial unit, the completion of 72 Flint Street, the Halstead Apartments with 130 units, 602 Loring Ave, new 20-unit apartment building underway, 20 Harbor Street and 129 Lafayette Street, completion of 2 new mixed low-income residential buildings respectively with 37 apartments total, the completion of 144 Canal Street, which is a Starbucks, and 124 Canal Street, the finished 30-unit apartment building behind it. As with most years, personal property accounts bring in a substantial amount of new growth tax dollars due mostly to the utility and telecom accounts. The DOR approved new growth value resulted in $1,828,203 tax dollars in allowable tax levy growth. This amount is used and calculated the levy limit for FY23. Page 12, new growth examples. This is just a sample of the mentioned properties, with 72 Flint Street having a growth value of $1,325,100, 435-443 Highland Ave with a growth value of $2,227,600, 41st Street and 45 Traders Way, $22,661,780, and 129 Lafayette Street and 20 Harbor Street, $1,299,700 in value growth. Page 13, growth by class. Here's the fiscal year 23 new growth broken down into class and tax dollars. First is the residential breakdown, showing new growth value, the tax dollars from that growth, and the percentage that makes up of the residential class. Single families made up 12.43% of the residential growth. Residential condos made up 42.91%. 2 and 3 families, 3.68%. Multifamily parcels with 4 units and up at 38.02%. Land and other mixed use made up 2.41 and 0.56% respectively. Residential growth in tax dollars came to $1,087,861. Commercial tax dollars from growth is $208,758.6. Industrial tax dollars from growth is $3,136, and personal property tax dollars from growth is $528,450. Again, the percentages for the CIP class is shown to the right of the tax dollars. And below that is the total overall new growth value and the tax dollars of $1,828,203 when rounding. Page 14, historic growth. This bar graph represents the growth in tax dollars over the years starting from 2012. Again, the year 2020 was higher due to the power plant construction. Page 15, determining the tax levy and a breakdown of the city budget. First, we start with the total budget and other articles approved by the City Council back in June 2022, which is $201,228,126. Then you minus the state aid, local receipts, enterprise and CPA funds, and other revenues, and that will leave you with the amount remaining to be collected from property taxes, the tax levy, which is $114,452,574. The pie chart to the right shows each as a percentage of the total budget. Page 16, the levy limit. This slide explains the levy limit. Proposition 2.5 limits the amount of revenue a community can raise through real and personal property taxes, tax levy, from year to year. The maximum amount a community can levy in any given year is called the levy limit. Under Proposition 2.5, a community's levy limit increases automatically by 2 factors. 1, an incremental increase of 2.5% of the prior year's levy limit, and 2, a dollar amount derived from the value of new construction, condo conversions, subdivisions, and other growth in the local tax base since the previous year, the new growth. A community can also assess additional taxes to pay for debt services, principal and interest costs for a specific capital project, an example, a new school. This additional amount, debt exclusion, is added to the levy limit for the life of the debt. The combined total is referred to as the maximum allowable levy. The maximum allowable levy for FY23 is $121,530,005. The estimated levy for FY23 will be $114,452,574. This leaves an excess levy capacity of $7,077,431. This is the difference between the maximum property tax revenue a community is legally permitted to bill and the tax bills paid. To the right are the calculations. Page 17, historic levy limits and excess levy capacity. These tables show the history of the levy limits, and excess levy capacity over the last 2 decades. The historic tax levy has remained relatively steady, while the excess levy capacity has been increasing over the years. Again, this is the difference between what we could be raising and the amount actually levied. We haven't collected close to the full levy limit in over 10 years. Page 18, the City Council is here tonight to take a vote on the following. 1, a selection of a residential factor recommended at 0.857132, which is a 1.73 CIP shift. 2, open space discount option. 3, residential exemption option. And 4, a small commercial exemption option. Page 19, minimum residential factor. Starting with the minimum residential factor, the City Council must vote to determine the percentage of the tax levy to be paid by each class of real and personal property for the fiscal year. In determining these percentages, the council must first adopt a residential factor that must be an amount not less than the minimum residential factor, MRF, calculated by the Commissioner of Revenue. The residential factor adopted governs the percentage of tax levy to be borne by residential property owners. It does not change the total tax levy or the assessed values. An MRF of 1 would yield a single tax rate. This is calculated by the tax levy divided by the total value times 1,000. For fiscal year 23, a single tax rate would be $14.60 for all classes. A factor lower than 1 would shift more of the tax burden to the commercial, industrial, and personal property parcels. Historically, Salem has adopted a split tax rate, one for the residential open space and the other for commercial, industrial, personal property, or the CIP. It is recommended that the City Council adopt a minimum residential factor of 0.857132 for the City of Salem for FY23. The following slides are examples of the MRF shift that we'll have on the major classes based on averages. It is important to keep in mind that this is an overall average and that individual property tax bills could vary depending on factors such as sales and renovations, etc. Page 20, average single-family tax bill. With the recommended shift for fiscal year 23, the average single-family home value is $516,174, with an average bill increase of $289 from last year. 40% of Salem's single-family homes are assessed above the average, and 60% of Salem's single-family homes are assessed below the average. The average single-family bill increased with a 5-year average of 3%, despite the residential values going up 11.1%, as shown on page 7. Page 21, average residential condo bill. For FY23, the average residential condo value is $389,042, with an average bill increase of $228 from last year. 47% of Salem's residential condos are assessed above the average, and 53% are assessed below the average. The average residential condo bill increased with a 5-year average of 4%, despite the condo values going up 14.2%. Page 22, average single-family and condo bill. The average single-family tax bill will increase $289, or roughly $24.08 per month, and the average residential condo bill will increase $228, or roughly $19 per month. Again, single-family and residential condos make up 80% of all residential units in the city. Page 23, average single-family tax increase by community. Here is the average single-family tax bill increase bar graph for fiscal year 23 with surrounding municipalities. Salem's average single-family tax increase this year is in between Peabody and Marblehead with $289. We are just about in the middle of the spread compared to last year when we only went up $97 and we're at the bottom of the list. As of now, Beverly, Lynn, and Peabody's figures have not been approved by the DOR, as they either had just had their classification hearings or are scheduled to have theirs in the upcoming days. Page 24, average single-family tax bill increase municipal comparison. These two tables show a comparison of the single-family tax increase over the past 5 years in surrounding municipalities. The table on the left shows the average yearly bill, while the table on the right shows the average increase. Compiled to the far right of that is a 5-year average, with the city of Salem second to the bottom of the list, with $169 for a 5-year average single-family tax bill increase. Only Lynn is below us with $159 for a 5-year increase average. Below those two tables is a bar graph depicting the single-family average tax bill increase. Again, you will see Salem has not raised the single-family tax bill as much as the surrounding communities have done over the past 5 years. Page 25, average two-family bill. The average two-family value is $569,535, with a decrease of minus $58 from last year. 40% of Salem's two-family homes are assessed above the average, and 60% are assessed below the average. Page 26, average three-family bill. The average three-family value for FY23 is $669,661, which results in an average tax bill increase of $132. 43% of Salem's three-family homes are assessed above the average, while 57% are assessed below the average. Page 27, average and medium commercial bill. The average commercial property value is $823,491, with an average tax bill increase of $499. 24% of Salem's commercial properties are assessed above the average, and 76% are assessed below the average. Since the commercial class is very broad and encompasses everything from small businesses like corner stores, small offices and retail, to large plazas, commercial parks and warehouses, it is hard to identify a truly average commercial property. It is more appropriate to use a median for this particular exercise. The median commercial value is $412,200, and the median commercial tax bill increase is $218, or $18.16 per month. Page 28, what does it mean to adopt a residential factor? Here is the proposed shift for the major classes. Residential class will borne 71.68% of the share. Commercial class will assume 14.15%. Industrial, 8.29%, and personal property, 5.86% of the share. Page 29, tax levy calculation. Assuming the recommended 1.7 CIP split, or 0.857132 minimum residential factor, the residential tax rate will go down to $12.51 per thousand, and the commercial, industrial, personal property tax rate will go down $25.25. The total residential value times the $12.51 tax rate and the total CIP values times the $25.25 commercial tax rate will give us the FY23 levy of $114,452,574. Page 30, tax rate history. This line graph is of Salem's historic tax rate starting in 1986 to today. They are not adjusted for inflation. In general, when the market reflects that sales are going up, typically the tax rates go down. This is subject to the approval of the budget and how much is needed to be recouped in tax dollars, the levy. For example, if the budget stayed the same yet the values went up, the tax rates would go down to yield the same return needed. Page 31, additional tax rate options. These three options may also be adopted by communities that have been certified as assessing at full and fair cash value by the Department of Revenue. Open space discount, residential exemption option, and small commercial exemption option. The choice of either or both the first two affects whether a community chooses to shift the tax burden within the residential class. The third option affects the tax rate within the commercial industrial class. The following pages provide relevant information and data for each option. The Board of Assessors has determined that these options do not pertain to Salem, and such options should not be considered by the City Council. Page 32, open space discount. Open space is defined by MGL Chapter 59, Section 2A as land which is not otherwise classified and which is not taxable under the provisions of Chapter 61, 61A, or 61B, or taxable under a permanent conservation restriction, and which land is not held for the production of income but is maintained in an open or natural condition, and which contributes significantly to the benefit of enjoyment of the public. An exemption of up to 25% could be adopted for property class 2 open space. Currently, there is only one community in Massachusetts that grants an open space discount, and Salem has no parcels in class 2 open space. Page 33, residential exemption option. The residential exemption reduces the taxable valuation of each residential parcel that is a taxpayer's primary residence, owner-occupied, and primary domicile. Granting this exemption raises the residential tax rate for all and shifts the residential tax burden from low-value and owner-occupied homes to higher-value non-occupied homes, which would experience a significant increase in taxes. Apartments and multifamily parcels, which are not owner-occupied, would also see a significantly higher tax burden. An individual who is granted an exemption could still end up paying more due to the valuation break-even threshold than the higher residential tax rate. Exemption is a misnomer since it is actually a tax shift and provides for a redistribution of tax levy among residential property owners only within residential class 1. This will not affect commercial or industrial properties in any way. Adoption of a residential exemption is of benefit only in those communities that have a substantial number of non-primary residences. Only 16 out of 352 communities in the Commonwealth have adopted a residential exemption. Cities and towns that utilize this tax option generally have a large percentage of non-primary residential rental units like Boston, Brookline, Cambridge, etc., or a large amount of resort seasonal tourist rentals, Nantucket, Provincetown, Tisbury, etc. Analysis into this exemption does not yield an advantageous benefit for the City of Salem. Most of the improved residential parcels are the primary residence of Salem taxpayers on record. Therefore, there is little or no benefit in adopting a residential exemption, one which Salem has never adopted. This program is also very costly to implement and maintain. Page 34, small commercial exemption option. An exemption of up to 10% of the total commercial property valuation may be adopted for eligible commercial properties. Granting this exemption raises the commercial tax rate and shifts the commercial tax burden from qualifying properties to ineligible commercial and all industrial properties. This is a shift only in the commercial class and does not affect the residential properties in any way. As for the exemption guidelines, the parcel must be occupied as of January 1st by a business with an average annual employment of no more than 10 employees at all locations during the previous calendar year, as certified by the Department of Employment and Training. If the property has more than one business, i.e. a strip mall, each business must have fewer than 10 employees for the exemption to be granted. All would have to qualify. Building value cannot exceed $1 million. Exemption is granted to the owner of the real estate, the building owner, not the business owner or the renter, as the law does not require that tax relief be passed through to the business owner. Reasons against adopting this exemption. Most businesses in the city of Salem rent or lease their workspace. This exemption would shift the greater burden onto the higher valued properties who already pay a large portion of the total tax levy share, 14%, in addition to the commercial tax rate shift. This hard-to-track exemption is applicable in those communities that have a substantial commercial industrial base with a sufficient number of large employers. There are only 14 municipalities out of 352 communities in the Commonwealth that have adopted this exemption. In conclusion, the purpose of this hearing is to establish the proportion of the tax levy shared by the residential and commercial class of property. The assessor's role in this process is to determine the values based on use of all properties in the city, determine the amount of new growth in property taxation each year, and determine the amount needed to be reserved for abatements and exemptions in the overlay. Our values and new growth have already been set and approved by the Massachusetts Commissioner of Revenue. In May and June, the City Council conducted budget hearings and approved, reduced, or rejected the recommended appropriations brought forth to run municipal government. These decisions determine if the property tax collected for fiscal year 23 would be higher or lower than the property tax collected for fiscal year 22, the tax levy. The assessing department, as always, is open to discuss with those that need assistance any applicable exemptions or deferral programs. They can reach out to the assessor's office and/or visit our website to review the many options the city currently offers. Thank you.
Thank you. We all need to take a breather now.
I need water too.
Does anyone else want to join in before we open it up to questions? No? Does Councilor Cohen?
Thank you, President Morcillo, through you to Steve. Thank you very much for the presentation. I just have one quick question. In the class charts, it has the percentage of properties that are above or below the assessed value. How does that correlate to the percentage of properties that get an increase or a decrease?
So that's mainly used by the DOR as a guide to show municipalities what the shift would do. As I said in the presentation, it's just an average. So we're only looking at that one specific average. And it doesn't mean that everyone who are below it or above it will either go up by that much or not. It's just a guide used by the DOR.
Councilor Stott.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Stephen, as always, for a great presentation. It's definitely my jam with all the data. I love it. You mentioned at the very end some programs that are available, including exemptions or referral programs. I was hoping maybe you can touch on a summary of what we have available. This number is one of the charts that you showed is a higher number than what we have raised before in the taxes. So I want to make sure that everyone is available, or I'm sorry, that everyone is knowledgeable in the public of the programs that we do have available to them.
Sure. So some of the clauses that we grant for exemptions, personal exemptions, if you are a widow, if you are a minor who owns a property, let's say your parents die and they leave it to you, if you're elderly over 70 years old, all of that falls under a clause exemption 17D. That's if you are elderly, that is income asset restricting, but if you're, as well as the minor and the widow, that exemption starting at $351 and it can go up to $702. There's an exemption, clause 41C, which is an elderly exemption if you are 65 years or older. This is an income and assets qualifying restrictions. So the 17D was just a asset restriction. The 41C, which is a lower age, is income and assets restriction. This is starting at $500 and it can go up to $1,000. The next is a blind. If you are certified as legally blind, that exemption starts at $500 and can also go up to $1,000. A widow or minor child of a police or firefighter, spouse who remained unmarried, or minor children of police or fire officer killed in the line of duty, that is a total exemption. Disabled veterans, we have a bunch for veterans. If you are a veteran who is between 10% to 90% disabled, the exemption starts from $400 and can go up to $800. If you are lost of one hand, foot, eye, and a Medal of Honor Service Cross recipients, the exemption can be from $750 to $1,500. If you have loss of both hands, feet, sight, or one hand or foot, it could be $1,250 up to $2,500. 22C, this is total disability and qualifying for special housing adapted. It can go from $1,500 to $3,000. And 22E is 100% disabled. That exemption starts at $1,000. It could go to $2,000. If you are a Gold Star parent, it is a total exemption. And if you are a surviving spouse, it is also a total exemption. Now, we also have CPA exemptions for the CPA charge. This is for low-income persons or any age, of any age, or low to moderate income seniors 60 years of age of older as of January 1st, 2022. Income requirements based on the 21 income. And then we also have the senior STEP program. This is for persons 65 years of age or older as of January 1st, 2022, must have filed and been granted a 2021 Massachusetts State Tax Form Schedule CB, which is the circuit breaker on your income tax. We take half of that. We also do deferrals.
Wow, thank you. I really appreciate that. I knew of 2 of those, so that was really great to hear that list. My follow-up question
if I can, also, all of that is on our website with more data that I
Great.
just...
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question, is how can someone find out more information? And is the contact information on how to...
Feel free to call us, come down, or look on our website.
Any other questions? Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Council President. Excuse me. Thank you for all of this information. It's really helpful. I just wanted to ask you to expound a little bit more, if you're able to, about the residential exemption option and talk about a little bit about these exemptions. I noted in the information that you presented that, according to your analysis and recommendations, that you found that these wouldn't really be of a benefit to our community. And one of the things noted in the sheet is that adoption of the residential exemption is really only of benefit to those communities that have a substantial number of non-primary residences. Do you have a sense of what the threshold for substantial is and what that proportion is in our community right now in Salem?
Yes. So 80% of Salem's residential parcels are owner-occupied. So typically, this is for those communities that are well below 80%. A 2 and a 3 family parcel is still considered a single parcel. That's one parcel. So you're going to get the exemption based off of if you're a parcel, not how many units are there. So like I said, 80% is owner-occupied.
Sure. And this is information you may not have, but do you have a sense of where that number sits for communities that do end up adopting this exemption?
Honestly, I don't have that at this time, but I can get that to you.
Sure, thank you. I also wanted to ask you about another note in this same exemption space relative to, it talks about it being a sort of a costly program to implement and maintain. What are sort of the associated costs with taking on an exemption like this?
Okay, so for something like this, we'd have to verify where the person lives, if they are questioning our determination if they're, owner occupied. So that takes up a lot of time. Also, this is costly because it would increase the tax rate to $14.82 instead of $12.51. So when I say costly, that's what I mean for costly. And that would be for all, even the parcels that are granted the exemption would still be paying at 14.82 tax rate.
So is it fair to say that the average, sort of according to the sheets that we saw before about the sort of average increases, for the median household, is it fair to say that adopting this exemption would increase the average tax, would increase the tax bill for the average household?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a quick question. You mentioned that there's 5 exempt properties that are now taxable. Do you happen to know what they are?
At the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't. I know there's one on Charter Street. I can get that to you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, President Morsillo. Stephen, thank you. I've seen this presentation many times, and I can honestly say I think this is the first time I've actually seen every single slide read. I think, and with all, it was very well done, and I want to thank you for that. It was, I saw a couple things, but with that, I'd just like to say that to my colleagues, as I stressed earlier in the year, this is when we write the check. Because in the spring, when we went through the budget process, we went grocery shopping and we decided through the budget process what we wanted to see. And with that, now we're coming to the point where all those initiatives and/or items that we put in, that was placed in the budget that we approved, and now we have to kind of pay for those. And without flipping through all the packets, did we try to buy down, did we use free cash to buy down some of the, what would have been a more of an increase? If I could we waive the rules to allow the mayor to address this, if she wants to? Because as I leaned into Councilor McLean earlier, when we saw that number that was up to the levy, I said, you wouldn't believe the number when I first started, what that number was.
Yeah.
It was a lot less, so, anyway, if we could, thank you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be before you on our, what will be my last tax rate setting hearing. So we are pulling.
Can you speak right into the mic, please? Sorry about that.
It's okay. We are pulling $1.6 million out of retained earnings. We're not necessarily taking a straight up free cash appropriation, but we are taking $1.6 million to reduce the gross amount to be raised through taxation as a means to return some revenues. We have in the past, not every year, taken a portion of free cash and put it towards this effort as well. But this particular year, with rising interest rates and capital demands that we know have coming up, we'd like to enter into more of a pay-as-you-go program. You may have seen with the free cash appropriation, which I think was last meeting. That was last meeting, correct? Yeah, or this meeting, sorry. Days are running together. We are also apportioning a larger amount to capital, knowing that we're going to be paying more in interest rates. We want to be able to have enough capital to support some of the needs that we have going forward, whether it's apparatus, which is before you today, or other capital that may come up. So we don't think it's wise this year to take some apportionment from free cash beyond the $1.6 million that's already in play, because we think it may cost us more when we think about borrowing and not having those capital assets available in free cash. With inflation going up, things are going to be costing more, and we want to be prepared to kind of deal with that moving forward.
Yeah, Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you. Could you just touch on it briefly? The free cash number was quite large this year.
Yeah.
Could we, was the direct result from, I know Anna might touch on this later, but while you're up here, with regards to why that number is as large, I mean, what anticipated revenues came in way above what we expected in order to allow that to be as
gonna
big of
ask-
a number as it is.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the finance director to help us. I mean, I think it's also good stewardship and management. We never want to overestimate our revenues or underestimate our expenses. We also don't want to be too conservative in that regard either. So maybe, Anna, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more what led to some of a good thing to have, a little bit higher free cash number. Thanks.
Can folks hear me okay? Okay. So our free cash did come in at a healthy amount for FY '22, similar to our FY '21 free cash. It was certified at just over 16 million, which is higher than typical for the city of Salem. It's less than last year. The bulk of our higher than usual free cash certifications the past 2 years have really been from the fact that 2 years ago, during the height of COVID, we were very conservative in our revenue estimates because we did not know what the future, what we would see for collections during that time. The city of Salem has had a very strong recovery, and so as that has occurred and we've worked to right-size our revenue estimates, we have just seen very healthy, in excess of our usual kind of steady state, above revenue collections versus the budgeted estimates used at the time. I'm anticipating that going forward, FY '24 and beyond, the city would likely return to its more usual free cash certification, surplus at the end of the year, because our revenues will be more back to where they were in terms of our typical conservative estimates, but also with collections that aren't experiencing a large recovery versus where estimates were. That has been the primary driver. And then also, so free cash is you're above budgeted revenue collections, any turnbacks from appropriations, and so there was some turnover that was experienced over the past couple of years, and so that has contributed to savings. And additionally, your free cash is also any unspent free cash from the prior year, you then add on to that. So we have some cumulative effect going on with healthy free cash left over from the previous year. And so, as the mayor said, leveraging that to help pay for some things in a way that will save taxpayers money in the long term is the effort we're trying to make as part of the strategy this year.
Excellent, thank you.
Counselor, I would add one postscript to that. Going forward, we are anticipating some of our revenues not being as healthy. The state changes in how and what we can collect for cannabis, for instance, could cost us close to $1 million, removing those host fee payments from the city of Salem. So there'll be some potential reductions in some of the dollars that contributed to that healthy free cash number as we move forward because of changes in the state law. Anything else?
Anyone else? Council McCarthy.
I just want to say thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
It's been a long time. And as I leaned into Council McLean earlier, when we started this journey 15, 16 years ago, that budget number was probably somewhere around 80-something million, 90-something million when we started, and it's gone up, and it's been, and obviously going up, it's been a challenge to manage and anticipate and do all that stuff. But when you look at where Salem was when you first came in, I came in a couple of years later. I looked at the chart, and as it went down, and then it came up, and it's been a steady rise since. And I think that attributes a lot to your leadership and what you've done. And I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor. I think it's a real partnership. Having your fiscal house in order allows you to do a lot of the things that people enjoy as taxpayers and as residents, and it's been a real privilege to be able to work in concert with all of you. We've had strong finance teams, strong assessing teams who have really helped us as we think about, a pro-growth agenda that improves the quality of life in the place that we all love. So appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing, so we will take public comment. If there's anyone in the room that would like to make a comment, either in favor or in opposition, or if you are out in Zoom land, you can use the raise hand function or *9. Okay. If there are no other questions or comments from councilors, Councilor McCarthy. Councilor McCarthy moves to close the public hearing. All those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. And thank you, everyone, for being here tonight to guide us through all those numbers. Appointments and reappointments.
We have held from the last meeting the mayor's appointments of the following to the Salem Food Policy Council with terms to expire.
Counselor Hapworth.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Counselor Hapworth moves for confirmation by roll call vote. Under discussion?
Thank you, President Morcillo. Just want to thank all these folks for their willingness to serve.
Counselor Varela.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I'd like to make a motion to move to divide the question of removing Celia Grant from the list and take up the vote separately.
Counselor Varela moves to split the question to remove Celia Grant and take that one up separately. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor McLean. All those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Any further discussion? So taking up the appointments, omitting Celia Grant. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Cohen?
Yes.
Counselor Hapworth?
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Merkel?
Yes.
Counselor Prosnowski?
Yes.
Counselor Riccardi?
Yes.
Counselor Varela?
Yes.
And Counselor Marcillo.
Yes. On the mayor's appointments of the following to the Salem Food Policy Council, Johan Arango, I'm going to murder this, I apologize. Robin Burns, Allison Caffrey, Flora Cordeliani, Sarah Moore, Claudia Parashvit, thank you. Irv Perrin, Julie Potier-Brown, and Joel Simonson. We have 9 counselors voting, 9 in the affirmative, 2 absent. The matter carries. On the motion on Celia Grant, do you want to vote?
Suspend the rules first?
Oh, to do that, sure, okay. Counselor Hapworth?
Thank you, President Morcillo. Just make a motion to suspend the rules in case anyone who's present would like to speak.
Seeing no objection, we'll take Johan first, if you would like to. No? No? Okay. Robin has left, I believe. I don't think she's with us in Zoom land, right? Okay. Is she on Zoom? Robin Burns. Robin, if you're in the audience remotely, could you raise your hand?
She is there, she wants
Okay.
to. Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Got it? Okay. All right, Robin, you may speak if you so choose.
Hello?
Hello, we're here, we can hear you.
Hi. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the appointment. I really appreciative of the council and all of the work that they are doing and the focus from leadership and from Mayor Driscoll towards supporting food in all the different ways and supporting our community and providing equitable access. And there's a lot of great work to be done, and excited to be appointed and looking forward to working as part of this Food Policy Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Allison. I don't know if she's in Zoom. Allison, if you're out there, could you use the raise hand function? We'll move on to Flora. Pass? Okay. Sarah Moore sent in a quick message. She says, thank you for nominating me for the City of Salem's inaugural Food Policy Council. I have been honored to serve with the Salem Food for All since 2017 and the Salem Board of Health since 2019. As a sociologist whose research and teaching interests center on the social determinants of health and health disparities, I very much appreciate the opportunity to bring my expertise to bear on health equity issues facing our community. I'm excited to work with this group of community leaders to improve Salem community members' access to fresh and healthy food, bolster community gardens, local farms, and opportunities for Salem residents to grow their own food, and support collaborative collaborative educational programs that foster joyful and healthy eating. Thank you again for considering my nomination, Sarah B. Moore, PhD. Let's see, Claudia is next.
Into the mic, right?
Yes, thank
I'm
you.
Claudia Proskov. Thank you so much for having us here. Thank you for the appointment, Mayor Driscoll. I have been so excited to be on the Food for All group, on and off, since pre-pandemic. I'm probably the least fully directly connected to food. I'm an architect and a community artist, and my passion really is to try to get the word out to as many people as possible about the wonderful work that the Food Policy Council has done with the Urban Agriculture Ordinance, Mac Park Farm, and so much more, and I'm so excited for all the work they're gonna do in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Irv Perrin. We'll do a big round at the end. Next, we have Irv Perrin, who I think is joining remotely. Irv, if you would like to make a comment, you can use the raise hand function. Nope. How about Julie?
I want to thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for the appointment. And I have been part of local food and organic food for about 20 years, so I have a particular passion. So I'm really excited to help form policy and implement ideas, and thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Joel.
I didn't prepare anything, but why not? I'm Joel Simonson. I'm really honored to be appointed to the council, and thank you, Mayor Driscoll, for the appointment as well. I'm a Salem resident, but I also work for Project Bread, so I'm really excited to bring my background and expertise to my local community. I'm really honored to serve the community with my peers, and I'm really excited for the work that we're going to do. So just thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, and now on the appointment of, let me see, Celia Grant. Under discussion. Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Morcillo. So I did have a conversation with Ms. Grant about this. Ms. Grant is coming from the Daily Table, which they do have a couple Boston locations, and they will be soon coming to Salem. And we believe at that time, we'd like to give Ms. Grant the opportunity to be part of the Food Council. Moreover, she will be attending the meetings, but we look forward to possibly having her in the future.
So do you have a motion?
So my motion would be to...
I guess a roll call vote.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Madam City Clerk, is there any other discussion first? Just, yeah.
Well, it's...
So on,
Thank you. So the motion would be to hold or to not
also
appoint?
move forward with the vote?
Yeah. Very good.
Unless you want to hold it.
Thank you. I'd like to move on with the vote.
Okay. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen.
Yes.
Is the question on the table is to appoint?
It's to,
So
it's for
that's-
confirmation.
So
The-
this is for
okay.
confirmation,
Mhm.
okay? So it's to appoint, okay, for clarification.
I will vote present.
Councilor Hapworth.
No.
Councilor McCarthy.
No.
Councilor McLean.
No.
Councilor Merkel.
No.
Councilor Prosnewski.
No.
Councilor Riccardi.
No.
Councilor Varela.
No.
And Councilor Masillo.
No. On the mayor's appointment of Celia Grant to the Salem Food Policy Council, we have 9 councilors voting, 8 in the negative, 1 voting present, 2 absent. The matter does not carry. All right. Further appointments and reappointments.
We've held from the last meeting the mayor's appointment of Jack Neeson of 26 Phelps Street to the Sustainability, Energy, and Resiliency Committee with a term to expire on July 20th, 2023.
Councillor Hapworth.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Councillor Hapworth moves for confirmation by roll call vote. Under discussion?
Thank you, President Morcillo. Just want to thank Doug Bowker. This is his, formerly his seat. I want to thank him for his service. And want to welcome Mr. Nessen. He's the GIS Administrator for Mass Audubon and formerly served as the City GIS Administrator, and just want to thank him for his service.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councillor Cohen?
Yes.
Councillor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councillor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councillor McLean?
Yes.
Councillor Merkel?
Yes.
Councillor Prosnewski?
Yes.
Councillor Riccardi?
Yes.
Councillor Varela?
Yes.
And Councillor Masillo?
Yes. On the mayor's appointment of Jack Neeson to the Sustainability, Energy, and Resiliency Committee, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Councillor Hapworth.
Nope.
Thank you.
Go, sorry.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I just want to suspend the rules in case Mr. Nissen would like to address the council.
Mr. Neeson, if you are in Zoom land, you can use the raise hand function if you'd like to address the council.
He's able to. Go ahead, Jack.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the appointment. Really excited to serve the city of Salem again and be involved. Bringing almost a decade of experience in environmental sciences and sustainability, so very excited to get back to work and helping Salem become a more sustainable and resilient community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further appointments and reappointments.
We have held from the last meeting the mayor's appointment of Jason Lang of 43 Osgood Street to the Beautification Committee with a term to expire on November 17th, 2025.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Any discussion?
Yes, President Morcillo, I'd like to thank Jason Lang for their willingness to serve.
Anything else? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councillor Cohen?
Yes.
Councillor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councillor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councillor McLean?
Yes.
Councillor Merkel?
Yes.
Councillor Prosnewski?
Yes.
Councillor Riccardi?
Yes.
Councillor Varela?
Yes.
And Councillor Masillo?
Yes. On the mayor's appointment of Jason Lang to the Beautification Committee, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I would like to suspend the rules to allow Jason Lang to address the council.
Seeing no objection, Mr. Lang.
Members of the, I am short, so there we go. Okay. Members of the council, Madam Mayor, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to serve. I was lucky. I got my start in my career in public service, moved on from there to nonprofit, and I live my life by the idea that you leave the world a better place than you found it. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to actually do that. So I look forward to serving this city that we have loved for nearly 9 years, and I look forward to getting work done. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Further appointments and reappointments.
We have held from the last meeting mayor's appointment of Heather Lang of 43 Osgood Street to the Scholarship and Education Committee with a term to expire on September 10th, 2023.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Councilor Merkel moves for confirmation by roll call vote. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I would like to thank Heather Lang for their willingness to serve.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councillor Cohen?
Yes.
Councillor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councillor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councillor McLean?
Yes.
Councillor Merkel?
Yes.
Councillor Prosnewski?
Yes.
Councillor Riccardi?
Yes.
Councillor Varela?
Yes.
Councillor Masillo?
Yes. On the mayor's appointment of Heather Lang to the Scholarship and Education Committee, we have 9 counselors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I want to suspend the rules to allow Heather Lang to speak.
Seeing no objection, Ms. Lang.
I'm also short, so. As an educator myself for, well, over 19 years now, I am very honored to have this opportunity to help the students in our community here. So thank you very much. And I look forward to working with the people here in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further appointments and reappointments.
We have held from the last meeting the mayor's appointment of Kelly Tyler Lewis, 23 Warren Street, to the Historic Commission with a term to expire November 17th, 2024.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Councilor Merkel moves for confirmation by roll call vote. Under discussion?
Thank you, President Marcillo. I also would like to thank Kelly Tyler Lewis for their willingness to serve.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Prosnewski?
Yes.
Councilor Riccardi?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
And Councilor Marcillo?
Yes. On the mayor's appointment of Kelly Tyler Lewis to the Historic Commission, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I would like to suspend the rules to allow Kelly Tyler Lewis to address the council.
Seeing no objection, Ms. Tyler Lewis.
Thank you. I'm greatly honored by the appointment. I'm a homeowner in Salem who, along with my husband, has been renovating an 1838 Greek Revival house for 18 years. And I hope to be able to bring some of that practical experience and a deep commitment to stewardship of Salem's architectural heritage to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Further appointments and reappointments.
We have held from the last meeting the mayor's appointment of Captain Fred Ryan to the Salem Harbor Port Authority with a term to expire November 17th, 2025.
Councilor Prosnewski.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Councilor Prosnewski moves for confirmation by roll call vote. Under discussion?
Thank you, President Marcillo. I've known Captain Ryan personally for 20 years. He came to us from the Mass Maritime Academy, where he reached the position of Chief Engineer in the Merchant Marines. He has extensive knowledge of the oceans. He is Salem born and raised. He knows our harbor. He knows its needs. He knows its capabilities. He has a practical vision for its future. And with that, I would like to thank Captain Ryan for his further commitment for the city of Salem. And I'd also move to suspend the rules to allow Captain Ryan to speak.
Hold that thought. Any further discussion? Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I too want to thank Captain Ryan for his willingness to step up, being an ex officio member of the Port Authority, to fill a vacancy right now in such a critical time with our port and its development. I think that Captain Ryan's going to provide some great knowledge and wisdom on us. And I'd just like to note he's also been a member of the Harbor Planning Committee as well. So he's been in tune. He's with what's going on and what we're trying to do in the harbor. And I really want to thank him for his willingness to serve in an additional capacity on top of his duties as captain in the police force. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, President Marcillo. Although I didn't know any of the cool stuff that Captain Ryan did regarding maritime, he did replace Councilor Prosnewski on the No Place for Hate Committee as the liaison, and is one of the most diligent people I know in Salem and beyond, and know he'll do great. This is a really important board, and thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen.
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth.
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Counsel McLean?
Yes.
Counsel Merkel?
Yes.
Counsel Kwasniewski?
Yes.
Counsel Riccardi?
Yes.
Counsel Varela?
Yes.
And Counsel Masillo?
Yes. On the mayor's appointment of Captain Fred Ryan to the Harbor Port Authority, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Now, Councilor Kwasniewski.
Thank you. I'd like to now ask for a suspension of the rules to allow Captain Ryan to speak.
Seeing no objection, Captain Ryan.
Thank you very much. Mayor, I'd like to thank you for the nomination. Councilors for confirming that nomination. It's going to be an honor and a privilege to serve on it. I hope I can get some pointers from you, Councilor McCarthy, on this, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further appointments and reappointments.
We have held from the last meeting the mayor's appointment of Michaela Short of 81 Bancroft Road, Melrose, to the Food Policy Council with a term to expire November 17th, 2024.
Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Councilor Hapworth moves for confirmation by roll call vote. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Morcillo. Ms. Short would be a voting alternate, and I just want to thank her for her willingness to serve.
Any further discussion? I will also note the typo in the agenda. Instead of food policy, it says food pantry. So just to make that clear. Anyone else? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Kwasniewski?
Yes.
Councilor Riccardi?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
And Councilor Masillo?
Yes. On the mayor's appointment of Michaela Short to the Food Policy Council, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for suspension of the rules. If Ms. Short would like to address the council.
Seeing no objection. Ms. Short, if you are in the audience over Zoom, if you can use the raise hand function, if you'd like to address the council. Okay. I just want to thank all of the volunteers for the boards tonight. This was a big night for volunteers, and the city can't do what it does without all the volunteers. So further appointments and reappointments.
We have the mayor's reappointment of the following to various boards with terms to expire on December 8th, 2023.
Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I move for confirmation by roll call vote with the condition that when they are reappointed in December 2023, their expiration date is based on their original term to expire.
Councilor Hapworth moves for confirmation by roll call vote with the condition that when they are reappointed, when and if they are reappointed in December 2023, their expiration date is based on their original term to expire. Under discussion.
No further discussion.
Councilor Riccardi.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm appreciative of all of these that are willing to continue to serve. I just wanted to make a commentary note that reappointments now going forward, whoever might be listening to this, we will, our new council rules do state that they will be held until the next meeting as opposed to confirmation, at the first time that we're seeing them. So I just wanted to throw that out there for whoever might be listening for planning purposes to make sure that that extra time is factored in for reappointments. We could always, as you know, override our rules, but we did just vote, probably 2 hours now at this point, that reappointments are also held under the rules, or will be in if we adopt our new council rules. I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Council President Morcillo. I just wanted to express my gratitude to all these people for continuing to serve. I think this long list reflects probably everyone on the council knows quite a few of these people, and as you said, Council President, this is one of the ways that our city is differentiates from other places, the quality of the people that serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I too want to thank all of these individuals for wanting to continue to serve, and I also want to thank the administration for bringing all these in. Obviously, we know we're at a time of transition as our mayor goes on to bigger and better things with the state. But it's also important that we realize that with these boards and commissions, that these people are, in place through the transition and into the next mayor, whoever he or she may be. And I want to thank the administration for when you and I raised this topic with them, that their willingness to make sure that all these did happen at a time and before Mayor Driscoll will be leaving us, and so that these individuals will be in place. Because I think it's important that we all as a body and the administration realizes that during this transition, it's important that we have, stability in our boards and commissions and the way that the city will operate through what will be, a special election at some point. So thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, on the motion for confirmation by roll call vote with the condition as stated, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Cohen?
Yes.
Council Hapworth?
Yes.
Council McCarthy?
Yes.
Council McLean?
Yes.
Council Merkel?
Yes.
Council Presniewski?
Yes.
Council Riccardi?
Yes.
Council Varela?
Yes.
And Council Marcillo?
Yes. On the mayor's reappointment of various appointments and various boards, with the condition, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. And once again, thank you to all of these volunteers. Further appointments and reappointments.
We have the mayor's reappointment of the following department heads with the term to expire January 31st, 2024.
Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Councilor Hapworth moves for confirmation by roll call vote. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Morcillo. Just want to thank these folks also for their service to the city. Many of the people on this list are so vital to us as city councilors to get our job done. As Councilor McCarthy likes to joke, we know exactly when to call some of these people in order to get a hold of them. So just want to appreciate them for their service and thank them.
Anyone else? Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you. I just want to echo what I just said prior to our volunteers. Obviously, with our department heads, our employees, I think, once again, obviously, very supportive of the work that they all do. I think they're vital to the fabric of the city in providing the services for our constituents. And I also want to say that it's also, once again, when we raised that question of the administration, I want to say that the mayor was very understanding of moving forward, to how important it is to make sure that the key people in our that run our departments are, given the opportunity to stay on through this. We haven't seen something like this in a long time. So, I mean, it's going to be a special election, and it's going to be a different type of thing. And so to know that these people are in their positions and are going to still be performing their duties is going to be a great asset to our citizens, to make sure that they realize that we're going to retain these individuals in order to still serve the community while this transitional vote is going on. So I want to once again thank the administration for bringing these in. Thank you, and want to thank them obviously for the work that they continue to do on behalf of the citizens.
Anything further? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Cohen?
Yes.
Council Hapworth?
Yes.
Council McCarthy?
Yes.
Council McLean?
Yes.
Council Merkel?
Yes.
Council Presniewski?
Yes.
Council Riccardi?
Yes.
Council Varela?
Yes.
And Council Marcillo?
Yes. On the mayor's reappointment to various department heads, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. And I will add my thanks to this, that all these department heads will hopefully stay in place. Communications from the mayor.
We were noted that the sum of $7,332,014.25 is hereby appropriated from the general fund balance reserved for free cash to the following special revenue accounts: stabilization, capital improvement fund, and other post-employee benefits.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I move for suspension of the rules.
Council McCarthy moves for suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection.
I further move for adoption.
Counsel McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you. This is one of the practices that the finance team, the mayor, and the city council agreed on 2 years ago. It's good policy, and this is, we set aside monies every year after it's certified for free cash to go into the various funds. So I would move for adoption.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We've been ordered that the sum of $3,082,519 shall be raised and appropriated from the City of Salem General Fund for the purpose of supporting the fiscal year 2023 Trash Enterprise Fund expense subsidy, which represents the amount to be raised less operational expenses.
Counsel McCarthy.
Thank you, President Musella. I move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection,
I further move for adoption by roll call vote.
Counsel McCarthy moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Mosillo. This is requested by the Department of Revenue that we make this change from previous acceptable practices, and so at this time, I would move for adoption.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Prosnewski?
Yes.
Councilor Riccardi?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
Councilor Masillo?
Yes. On the motion that the sum of $3,082,590 be appropriated from the general fund for trash subsidy, is that right? Yeah. We have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Counsel McCarthy.
Thank you, President Musella. I move for immediate reconsideration in hopes it does not prevail.
Counsel McCarthy moves for immediate reconsideration in the hopes that it does not prevail. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Opposed.
The matter does not carry. Further communications from the mayor.
We have been ordered that the sum of $1,682,136 is hereby appropriated from the following receipts reserved for appropriation accounts to reduce the tax rate amount to be raised by taxation when the fiscal year 2023 tax rate is set.
Counsel McCarthy.
Thank you, President Musella. I move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection,
I further move for adoption.
Counsel McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
I would just say, in the receipts reserved for the Witch House, it is, as presented in there, it says $622,135. It should be $136. It was just an inadvertent error. The total is correct both in what it was read and what is on the sheet, but the finance director showed me that error earlier this evening and asked me to correct that.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I would just further say this is something we do every year. We sweep these accounts, these receipt reserved accounts for these different entities, and at the this time every year we sweep the accounts to set aside this money to help offset the tax rate.
Thank you. Anything further? Seeing none. On the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further, Counsel McCarthy.
I've been also asked for immediate reconsideration. I hope does not prevail on this matter as well.
Counsel McCarthy moves for immediate reconsideration in the hopes that it does not prevail. All those in favor? All those opposed? Opposed. The matter does not carry. Further communications from the mayor.
We've been ordered that the sum of $800,000 is hereby transferred from the general fund balance reserved for free cash and appropriate to the following account in the capital improvement fund.
Counsel McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcelo. I move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection.
I further move for adoption.
Counsel McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Marcelo. This money is to be allocated towards the field at Mansell for the soil remediation. I'm sure the Ward 4 councilor could speak at length about what's been going on at the Mansell field, but obviously we discovered during due diligence that there was some migration of, I want to say that it was asbestos or something that was in the ground from a former tannery site, and we've been doing our due diligence to remediate that. So this money will be our portion of what is going to be needed, as along with money from the Department of Environmental Protection in order to remediate that site. And I can't, for the kid, for every time I hate to say it, every time I try to cut through that area to make it over to I was trying to stay out of the neighborhood, to cut through over to Highland Avenue off of Boston Street.
You're the one.
I'm the one. I am the one. It always, for a field that my kids used to play soccer on when they were little, to just see it all with a fence around it, I think it's well overdue that we do that. And I'm glad we've identified the sources and the way to do it. And I hope that it gets done in an expedited time so the kids can get back out there.
Council McLean.
Thank you, Council President. I'll echo many of the comments of the councilor next to me. This field was intended to be closed for a very short period of time, many residents will remember, and what we thought would be a 6-month period of time turned into several years. And that's been really difficult on the members of the neighborhoods who surround this community. It is not just my own ward, I will say. There are many residents who live in the apartments over in Ward 3 as well, who really rely on this location for their children and their families to have a safe place to play. If you are one of the people who happens to live in this neighborhood, you know there are several school bus pickups that go through there every morning. It's not a small number of families that are impacted by this, and it's been really disheartening for them to see the field fenced off, kind of falling into disuse, and then watch the fence kind of falling apart. So I really appreciate the city, that the attention is paying that the city is paying to this right now. I did have some conversations with Tom Devine trying to put this together, so I really appreciate that this stayed on the radar, and we will hopefully get this remediated, safe, and open for the neighborhood to use again.
Thank you. I 100% agree. Council McCarthy.
I'd also just like to recognize the fact that Tom Devine stuck it out with us tonight, just in case there were any questions. And I don't have any. I think that's just something we need to do. So I would move for adoption.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on Council McCarthy's motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed, the matter carries. Thank you for being here, Tom. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the sum of $750,000 is hereby transferred from the general fund balance reserved for free cash and appropriate to the following account in the capital improvement fund below for the fire department's purchase of a new ladder truck to replace Salem Ladder 1.
Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, President Masula. Move for suspension of rules.
Seeing no objection,
I further move for adoption.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Marcello. I had the pleasure of having a conversation with our chief earlier this week. He called me up as I was walking through the door of my house, and he asked me, "Council, do you have a minute?" And I said, "Chief, of course I have a minute." And then he said to me, he goes, "Have you read your agenda yet?" And I said, "Chief, I just walked through the front door. It just came out literally 3 minutes ago." And he says, "Well, there's an appropriation in there." I go, "All right, I haven't had time to read it yet. Why don't you run it through?" And so he ran it through me, and I said, my basic synopsis was, so you're telling me that the piece of apparatus that our men and women of the fire department need to serve the city is now unable to perform its duties because it's just had so many things go wrong with it, and so we need to appropriate $750,000 from free cash because you, through your due diligence, and you recognize the need that our men and women need state-of-the-art equipment in order to do their duties and serve the citizens of the city of Salem, that you've secured a truck that we can get within 6 months as opposed to 2 years in 6 months. And he says, "Well, yeah, that kind of sums it up." I go, "Well, and we'll just get that through on Thursday. We'll try to make sure that goes through." So I would obviously I give the chief a lot of credit. It shows his dedication to his team at the firehouse, that, he's willing to spend his evening with us tonight to make sure that if we do have any questions relative to this expenditure, that he stayed here to make sure that we realize what kind of an importance this is to his department, as well as to the city of Salem and its residents, that this truck be purchased. I want to thank the mayor for, in the finance team, for coming up with a creative way to actually pay for this. It was actually in the capital improvement plan a couple of years down the road. The plan has always been to try to baby that truck until we can get it to the point where we try to, this fire apparatus are high budget items, and we've been trying to spread them out over time, just because we don't like to get hit all at once in like a 3 or 4 year period with these large expenditures. We want to try to space them out as best we could. But obviously, this is just, it needs to be done. And I would wholeheartedly urge and recommend to my colleagues that we approve this expenditure to ensure that the men and women of the fire department get the apparatus that they need and deserve to serve the citizens of Salem. So I'd move for adoption.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. On the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Chief, I have one request. Any way the kids can name the fire trucks? Have a little contest?
Put them on the spot.
Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the sum of $229,664.88 is hereby appropriated from general fund balance reserved for free cash to the stabilization fund to replenish appropriations made prior to the certification of fiscal year 2022 free cash.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Mosillo. I move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection,
I further move for adoption.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Mosillo. Throughout the year, we make transfers in and out of the stabilization fund. This is just to put money back in the fund that we've depreciated over the course of time in order to have it available for hopefully they're anticipated, but sometimes they're not, with regards to retirement, so that the fund is where it should be. So I move for adoption.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the sum of $150,000 is hereby transferred from the general fund balance reserved for free cash and appropriated to the following account in the capital improvement fund below for the costs associated with traffic calming infrastructure, including the permanent installation of speed humps on Fairfield, Cedar, and Gardner Streets, and design, engineering, and education work for other measures throughout the city.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Mosillo. Move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection,
I further move for adoption.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you. I think the order is pretty much self-explanatory, so I would just move for adoption.
Council Cohen.
Thank you, Council President Morcillo. Just my opinion as Ward 5 Councilor that some traffic calming works really great. This was a test 2 years ago. Everyone on those streets was given a survey. Everyone thought it was worth trying again, which they did this year, and now this will be permanent. And I believe that it's just another example of how our traffic and parking department are making our streets, complete streets, safe for everyone.
Anything further? Seeing no further discussion on the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the sum of $140,088.30 is hereby appropriated and transferred from the general fund balance reserved for appropriation free cash account to the transit enhancement fund as provided in the cannabis host agreements for payments received from sales from January through June 30th, 2022.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Mosillo. Move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection,
I further move for adoption.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
When the mayor addressed us briefly earlier, she alluded to the potential of this maybe going away, but I would just say that we set aside these monies for in transit enhancements, so we utilize the money from some of the cannabis agreements to allow us to fund some of the alternative transportation initiatives, from blue bikes to the skipper to all sorts of other things. So I think it's important that we move this and adopt it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that $90,548.49 is hereby appropriate from the Community Preservation Act CPA fund balance to the account listed below to the Salem Willows Phase 2 improvements.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Masillo. Move for adoption.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you. I will say Tom Devine called me earlier in the week, and he told me Patty was going to be here, just in case there are any questions. And I will say what I said to Tom. Yeah, that one's going through. I will just say the Salem Willows Phase 2 improvements, this has been a long time coming, and I give a lot of credit to the administration and everybody to make sure that we understand that, the Phase 2 is going to be greatly enhanced what we did in Phase 1, but it's also going to address some of the needs with regards to the pier as well. So I think that's very important, and I want to thank everyone for their diligence on this, and I would move for adoption.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further communications from the mayor. Oh, thank you, Patty.
We have an order that the sum of $45,000 is hereby appropriated from the retained earnings water sewer fund account to the water engineering contracted services account for a water and sewer rate study.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection.
I further move for adoption.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you. I read this one yesterday or the day before, and I just want to make sure I get it right. I mean, obviously, it's to do a water and sewer rate study in order to better evaluate where we may need improvements. So it comes with a recommendation of Mr. Knowlton and through the mayor's office. So I would move for approval. But let me just give me a quick second. Yep, I would just move for approval.
Any further discussion? Is this to determine, I think I remember Mr. Knowlton talking at budget time about looking for possible issues on the entrance of the water into the city?
I believe it's for leak detection.
Leak detection?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Anything else? Seeing no further discussion on the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed, the matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have the sum of $41,773.48 is hereby transferred from the general fund balance reserved for free cash and appropriate to the following account in the sale of city property fund below to complete license site professional services for Parcel A adjacent to Furlong Park.
Council McCarthy.
Excuse me. I move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection.
I further move for adoption.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you. This came up during discussions during the budget. It was one of those things that they never formalized the final documentation on the cleanup, so that we had to go back and get them back to do that, and this is some of the cost to cover that. It's just one of those things that, for whatever reason, didn't get taken care of, but obviously, as we move forward, we want to make sure that we have the documentation that the site was remediated and capped properly.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed, the matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the sum of $25,000 is hereby appropriated from the following receipts reserved for appropriation account to be transferred to the Park and Rec contracted services account for costs associated with lifeguarding services at Forest River Pool.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I move for suspension of rules.
Seeing no objection.
I further move for adoption.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
I just want to know who has the picture of me sitting in the lifeguard chair when we dedicated the pool. I can't seem to find the person who took that picture and to get that photo. But I will say that what an amenity the pool is to the city. And obviously, with having a great amenity like that comes an incurred cost. And we do contract out with the Y for the services. And I don't know, but back in the day when I became a lifeguard when I was 16, 17 years old, we weren't making that kind of money, I can tell you that. But they provide a service, and we just need them to provide that service. And I wish that we probably had more money to keep it open longer, but it's just one of those things. Even this year, when you talk to anybody from the Y, they, obviously had some staffing, not difficulties, but, was trying to find the coverage that they needed to ensure that we could keep the numbers in the pool the way we wanted to, but this covers that contractual expense, so I'd move for adoption.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed, the matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the sum of $24,000 is hereby transferred and appropriated from the receipts reserve funds listed below to the Department of Public Services burial account.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection,
I further move for adoption.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption under discussion.
Thank you. This is a standard transfer that we see all the time during the course of the year, so I move for adoption.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed, the matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order per Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 64, which allows for municipalities to pay for prior fiscal year invoices using current fiscal year appropriations by a two-thirds vote of the council. Request the sum of $23,500 of outstanding fiscal year 22 invoices be allowed to be paid from fiscal year 23 mayor's office budget.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection,
I further move for adoption by roll call vote.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption by roll call vote under discussion.
Thank you, President Marcillo. When I read this one, of course, I had one of those thoughts in my head, and then I thought to my mother, who photocopies everything, no matter what it is. She prints the invoices off of, even when they get emailed to her, and she always has paper documentation somewhere because she's old school. And unfortunately, on this one, it just happens that this invoice was being sent to the prior finance director's email, and they never sent a hard copy to anybody, so we didn't know that we were getting this bill until they realized that when they went to call to find out why the bill wasn't there, that the former finance director was no longer with us. So it's just one that unfortunately it happens occasionally. I've said it before when we did a bunch of these earlier in the year. I don't like it when it happens because I don't like paying last year's bill with this year's money, but unfortunately it's something that does happen, and the service was provided. So I would move for adoption by roll call vote, and I would just say to my colleagues that it does require two-thirds, and we're down 2 members, so we need everyone to vote for this. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Cohen?
Yes.
Council Hapworth?
Yes.
Council McCarthy?
Yes.
Council McLean?
Yes.
Council Merkel?
Yes.
Council Prosniewski?
Yes.
Council Riccardi?
Yes.
Council Varela?
Yes.
And Council Marcillo.
Yes. Per Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 64, to pay for $23,500 for an FY22 invoice with FY23 budget for the mayor's office. We have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order to accept the donation of $9,500 from John Russell, representing the funds collected from the usage of parking spaces during the Halloween season. The donation is to be deposited into the Park and Recreation Donation Fund.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I move for adoption.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption under discussion.
Thank you. I just want to thank Mr. Russell and his volunteers that some weekends braved the elements. They spent their time down at the Council on Aging facility, and when there wasn't events going on at the Council on Aging, they set up and rented parking spots for the month of Halloween, specifically to raise funds for the Friends of the Park and Rec, and also the Friends of the Council on Aging, which probably will come in separately. It was they were out there every weekend. And it just shows I give Mr. Russell all the credit for spearheading this and gathering the volunteers and getting people to cover the weekends in order to raise these funds that wouldn't be available to support our different activities, both on the Parks side and on the Council on Aging side. So I want to thank him personally. He does a great job.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Council President. I had the pleasure of serving as the liaison to the Council on Aging Board during this year, and it was an incredible learning experience. Everybody there was a pleasure to work with, and that includes John Russell. And I just really stand in awe of the number of people in our community who step up to help the other people in our community, to help their neighbors. We talked earlier about how grateful we are for the people who agree to serve on our boards and commissions, but then you go to the next level where you have organizations like the Friends, who are just people who care, right? People who take the time and energy right out of their own lives to just make sure that their neighbors are taken care of. And, you know, we have a really active community. We have a lot of people in Salem who are passionate about their home, and we don't always agree about everything. And, you know, when we were having conversations about this parking earlier this year, they could be really tough. But when that moment came, when I was able to hear from John the amount of money that they raised and what that money was going to turn into for our seniors in need, what that meant to people who were relying on Meals on Wheels at Thanksgiving, you just really understand how it really comes down to the people in your community, how everything you do is driven by their welfare. And I just really appreciate all the work that John and the Friends have done to keep that spirit of neighborliness and to keep that spirit of care alive in our community. And I just really want them to know that.
Thank you. That was very well said. Anyone else? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have in order that the mayor and the city council accept the provisions of Section 4, Chapter 73 of the Acts of 1986 for fiscal year 2023, and that such additional exemptions granted be 100% of the statutory exemption amounts, provided all other qualifications specified in said Section 4, Chapter 73 of the Acts of 1986 are met.
Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, President Musso. Move for adoption.
Councilor McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
This came up earlier when we had a discussion with regards to when Mr. Cortez was he still here?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
When he talked about this earlier, and I just moved for adoption.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have in order that the city establish an opioid settlement special stabilization fund pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, to receive distribution payments from state opioid settlements for further appropriation consistent with settlement requirements in accordance with the recommendation of Her Honor the Mayor.
Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, President Musso. I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Councilor McCarthy moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion.
Thank you. I had a discussion with the finance director earlier in the week, and through the opioid settlement, there's going to be funds that are going to be coming to the city probably over an extended period of time. Could be anywhere from like 10 to 15 years, I believe, depending on how long the settlement pays out. And the Massachusetts General Law, they basically want us to create this fund in order to be able to accept the funds and then track them. So when the settlements do get, when the monies do get appropriated towards the city, this just sets up the fund to will get transferred to. So my motion would be to adopt by roll call vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Prosnewski?
Yes.
Councilor Riccardi?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
And Councilor Musillo?
Yes. On the motion for the city to establish an opioid settlement special stabilization fund, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the city accept the provision within Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, which provides for the dedication without further appropriation of all or a percentage not less than 25% of particular fees, charges, or receipts to a stabilization fund established under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, to be effective for the fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2023.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcelo. I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion?
This is just another one of those orders that's coming down basically through Massachusetts General Law for good accounting practices that we adopt in order to, for the stabilization funds.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Presnowski?
Yes.
Councilor Riccardi?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
And Councilor Masillo?
Yes. On the motion for the city to accept a provision of the Mass General Law, Chapter 45B, dedication without further appropriation of all or a percentage not less than 25% of fees and charges or receipts to the stabilization fund established under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, effective for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023. We have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the city dedicate 100% of the distributions to Salem from the state opioid settlement agreements to the opioid settlement special stabilization fund established under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, effective for the fiscal year 2024, beginning on July 1st, 2023.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcelo. I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion?
This is the last order we have to adopt before we can actually accept the money in the next one. So they all go together. We're trying to create a fiscal policy in order to create the stabilization funds and then actually receive the money that we talked about earlier.
Okay. Anything further? Seeing no further discussion on the motion for adoption by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Presnowski?
Yes.
Councilor Riccardi?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
And Councilor Masillo?
Yes. On the motion that the city dedicate 100% of the distributions to Salem from the opioid settlement agreements to the opioid settlement special stabilization fund established fiscal year 2024, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order, excuse me, we have the order that the sum of $276,560.61 shall be appropriated and transferred from the City of Salem General Fund to the Opioid Settlement Special Stabilization Fund which is listed below, which represents the amount received to date in fiscal year 2023 in municipal distributions from state opioid settlement agreements.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcelo. Move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection,
I further move for adoption by roll call vote.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion.
No discussion. That I want to thank the Attorney General's office for doing their due diligence and actually and joining into the lawsuit and litigation against the drug companies for this. And actually, the city, I hope, was going to establish some great policies with regards to how we're going to expend these funds in order to combat some of what was happening with this opioid abuse. So these are just the start of the funds, and as I stated earlier, a lot of what we just adopted prior with regard to stabilization allows us to, this will be where the funds will be deposited, and then it will also be where they'll be distributed from, so therefore we can track them. So I want to thank you, and I move for adoption.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Counsel McLean?
Yes.
Counsel Merkel?
Yes.
Counsel Prosniewski?
Yes.
Counsel Riccardi?
Yes.
Counsel Varela?
Yes.
And Counsel Marcello?
Yes. On the motion for the appropriation of $276,560.61 to the opioid settlement special stabilization fund, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Councilman McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam President. Move for immediate reconsideration on hopes it does not prevail.
Councilman McCarthy moves for immediate reconsideration in the hopes that it does not prevail. All those in favor? All those opposed? Opposed. The matter does not carry. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an ordinance to amend the language of an ordinance relative to the tree donation fund.
Councilor Riccardi.
Thank you, President Marcelo. Move for adoption for first passage.
It's Councilor Riccardi.
Ooh, sorry.
You were just on a roll there.
I was on a roll. I wasn't even.
The whole agenda's for you.
We're giving you a break.
Councilor Riccardi.
Thank you, Council President. I was actually surprised to see my name as well. Just the Councilor McCarthy show this evening. But we do have some technical ordinance language cleanup in front of us this evening. Our existing ordinance refers to the fund as a revolving account, but per state law, donation funds and revolving funds have to be expressly separate accounts. So this language cleans it up. So I move for first passage again by roll call vote.
Councilor Riccardi moves for adoption for first passage. Any further discussion? Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Council President Morcillo, through you to Councilor Riccardi. I don't believe we have a tree warden on as an employee anymore. I think it's a cemetery director who might also be the tree warden, which is still a job posted. So should we adjust the language to say cemetery director or tree warden?
Councilor Riccardi.
Thank you, Council President. Since Ms. Friedman is here this evening, I would like to suspend the rules, since this was a request by her. I do feel that the commission, this did go through the review, and they are aware of the absence of the position that Mr. LeBlanc left with the city. So as the request, though, did come from Anna, since we happen to have her here this evening, I didn't know if she had anything to add to that.
Seeing no objection.
Thank you, Counselor. I would suggest, I have not explored that question, but I would suggest that the language may not need to be changed, that whomever is acting in the capacity to fulfill that role, I believe, and because this language, I believe, was vetted previously with relevant stakeholders, I would suggest leaving it as is, and to not add an additional party that, once a tree warden is on staff, could potentially conflict with the language as written here.
Thank you. Anything further? On the motion for adoption for first passage, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Mayor's informational page.
We have a letter from the mayor with her recommendation of the setting of the current fiscal year tax rate.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I move that this be received and filed.
Council McCarthy moves that this be received and filed. All those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further information from the mayor.
We have a letter from the mayor resigning from the position of mayor of the city of Salem effective at the conclusion of her remarks at the 2023 City Council organizational meeting scheduled to be held on Wednesday, January 4th, 2023.
Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I move that the letter be received and filed and that the City Council vote for acting mayor take place on the conclusion of her remarks on Wednesday, January 4th, 2023.
Council McCarthy moves that the letter be received and filed and that the City Council vote for acting mayor to take place at the conclusion of her remarks on Wednesday, January 4th, 2023. And I think we'll just do a vote here. All those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Sadly. Motions, orders, and resolutions. Let's see. Where are we? Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President. Prior to us going through the adoption of the tax rate, I know we just received a letter from the mayor and put it on file with regards to her remarks relative to that. Is there anything you'd like to add, Mayor, relative to what your comments were earlier?
I'll save them for my final meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Council McCarthy?
We're in motions, orders, resolutions?
Yes, page 22.
City Council.
That's me. I don't have my order, though. Just one sec.
Please hold.
Thank you. City of Salem, City Council, December 8th, 2022, ordered that the City of Salem adopt the residential factor of 85.7132% for the fiscal year 2023. And I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion?
Thank you, Madam, excuse me. Thank you, President Morcillo. This all goes, once again, I want to thank Mr. Cortez and for his presentation. And we're going to go through all of these that set the tax rate. And I just want to thank everyone for their participation during the budget process and now their participation during the tax rate now that we're going to pay for those initiatives. And I would move for adoption by roll call vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Presniewski?
Yes.
Councilor Riccardi?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
And Councilor Marcillo?
Yes. City of Salem to adopt a residential factor of 85.7132% for fiscal year 2023. We have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Further motions, orders, Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I move for immediate reconsideration in the hopes it will not prevail.
Council McCarthy moves for immediate reconsideration in the hopes that it does not prevail. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Opposed.
The matter does not carry. Further motions, orders, and resolutions. Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Morcillo. City of Salem City Council ordered December 8th, 2022, that the City of Salem not adopt an open space exemption for fiscal year 2023. And I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion?
Thank you, President Morcillo. I don't think there's a need for discussion. I think that Mr. Cortez presented this very well during his presentation, and I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Presniewski?
Yes.
Councilor Riccardi?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
And Councilor Marcillo?
Yes. On the motion that the City of Salem not adopt an open space exemption for fiscal year 2023, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I move for immediate reconsideration in hopes it will not prevail.
Council McCarthy moves for immediate reconsideration in the hopes that it does not prevail. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Opposed.
The matter does not carry.
Catching myself.
Further motions, orders, and resolutions. Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Morcillo. City of Salem City Council, December 8th, 2022, ordered that the City of Salem not adopt a residential exemption for fiscal year 2023.
Move for adoption.
And move for adoption by roll call vote.
Council
Sorry.
McCarthy moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion.
I don't think we need a discussion. I move for adoption.
Anything else? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Presniewski?
Yes.
Councilor Riccardi?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
And Councilor Marcillo?
Yes. On the motion that the City of Salem not adopt a residential exemption for fiscal year 2023, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The matter carries. Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I move for immediate reconsideration in hopes it does not prevail.
Council McCarthy moves for immediate reconsideration in the hopes that it does not prevail. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Opposed.
The matter does not carry. Further motions, orders, and resolutions. Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcillo. City of Salem City Council, December 8th, 2022, ordered that the City of Salem not adopt a small commercial exemption for the fiscal year 2023. And I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption by roll call vote. Any discussion?
No discussion.
Seeing no other discussion, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Cohen?
Yes.
Counselor Hapworth?
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Merkel?
Yes.
Counselor Presniewski?
Yes.
Counselor Riccardi?
Yes.
Counselor Varela?
Yes.
And Counselor Marcillo?
Yes. On the motion that the City of Salem not adopt a small commercial exemption for fiscal year 2023, we have 9 councilors voting, 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion does not carry. Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I move for immediate reconsideration in the hopes it will not prevail.
Council McCarthy moves for immediate reconsideration in the hopes that it does not prevail. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Opposed.
The matter does not carry. Further motions, orders, and resolutions. Council McCarthy.
City Council.
Yep. Thank you, President Marcillo. City Council, December 8th, 2022, ordered that the monthly financial reports dated June through October 2022 inclusive be received and filed. And I move for adoption.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption. Under discussion.
No discussion, and I just want to take a brief second to thank the Finance Director for bringing these in, and also thanks. Did we get anything wrong with all that stuff with regards to setting the tax rate? Did we cross all the Ts and dot all the Is? And I want to thank her. I want to thank her for indulging my comments when I call her up with weird questions with regards to what I'm reading, because sometimes I haven't seen something, and she's always willing to take my call and answer it. And I think she does a fabulous job, and I want to thank her for that. And I would move for adoption.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption. All those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Committee reports. Council McCarthy.
Me again? Thank you. City of Salem, December 8, 2022. What happened? You laughed out loud? Okay, I was wondering what just happened. Okay. Thank you. December 8, 2022, in city order, the Committee on, can we take a 5-minute break? No, never mind, we'll power through this. The Committee on Administration and Finance, co-posted the committee hall, who met to refer the matter of a public hearing on the Urban Housing Tax Increments Finance Program for Lee Fortes, had considered the matter and recommended that the matter remain in committee and that the public hearing be continued to a date certain of January 5th at 6 p.m.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, President Marcillo. We had a nice meeting last night, a lot of information back and forth relative to the UCH TIF program relative to both this order and the next order with regards to the area that would be created and the TIF itself. And there was a lot of spirited discussion and back and forth, and there was a lot of answers, and as typically what happens in these meetings, the more questions you ask, the more answers you get, and the more questions you ask. So I think I think we're all getting a better handle on how the financing works and how the affordability works, but there were still a bunch of questions that some of my colleagues felt needed to be resolved, and members of the community asked us to get resolved. And so we've asked that the Salem Housing Authority with Kathy Hogue and the Beacon Properties with Courtney and her team come back in early January at that date certain of January 5th. I just want to make sure I get the date right. It's a Thursday, January 5th at 6 o'clock, in order to address some of the questions that were raised relative to the development. So the motion would be to keep the matter in committee for the continuation of the public hearing on that date.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on adoption of the recommendation, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further committee reports, Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President. So, Marcillo, December 8th, 2022, ordered the Committee on Administration and Finance met, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, and was referred the matter of a public hearing of tax increment finance for Fort Lee, as it considered said matter and recommend that the matter remain in committee and be moved to a date certain of January 5th at 6 p.m.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, President Marcillo. Once again, briefly, this is the second part of what we talked about last night. And once again, there was, on both issues, there were questions that were still needed to be resolved. And the will was to continue the public hearing until that date in order to get some of those questions asked and resolved. And I would encourage a lot of what we were talking about last night was related to the agreement itself and the area that's going to be created in order to define, to let them qualify for these, this program. I would encourage anyone that, any members of the body that have any questions, make sure that they, if they come across something or someone reaches out to them and asks them a question. I know that over the last 2.5, 3 weeks, myself I know that at some points Councilor Hapworth reached out to me because of with the location of the development, and we were putting questions to the development team, and that's why I think that you saw the basic FAQ sheet that they came out with at the beginning of the meeting, and I've asked them to enhance that to address a lot more of the questions that actually came out during the public hearing. So I think it's good that the public hearing was continued, and I want to encourage anyone, if they have any questions, to reach out to them to make sure that they understand what the questions are, to make sure that that at that meeting they can address them. So I would just move that this matter be referred to that date certain time of January 5th.
On adoption of the recommendation that this remain in committee for a continuation of the public hearing to January 5th at 6 p.m. All those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further committee reports, Council McCarthy.
Thank you, President Marcillo. In City Council, in this City Council chambers, December 8th, 2022, the Committee on Administration and Finance met to meet about carrying the matters forward as it considered said matter, and would recommend that the matters that are indicated on the sheet be carried forward. Then the committee report shall state that Rule 31B would be suspended so that the matters would be carried over to the new year of 2023.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
I want to thank the committee. We met briefly earlier this evening, and there were certain matters that were discharged and certain matters that were carried forward. And the sheet that reflects those has been submitted to the city clerk, and so those matters will be carried forward at this time. This being my last committee report at this time, I would once again, as I thank them during the committee portion, I would like to thank the Finance Committee for all their efforts and diligence during the course of the year. We weren't quite as busy as the OLA Committee, but for a while there, when matters at the beginning of the year and during the budget, we were extremely busy. But I want to thank them for their service and to the committee, and look forward to next year. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on adoption of the recommendation, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further committee reports, Councilor Riccardi.
Thank you, Council President. City of Salem, December 8th, 2022. The Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, to who it was referred the matter of amending an ordinance relative to pickup of large items, has considered said matter and would recommend adoption for first passage.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, Council President. Ola met on Monday to discuss this topic, and we were joined by Dave Knowlton, the Director of Engineering, and Janelle Rolk, who is our new Waste Reduction Coordinator with the city. Janelle came with a lot of data for us to review and to see kind of what we're currently utilizing for bulk waste pickup, which does not have a fee to residents within the city now. So currently now the bulk item process or availability to residents is every 2 weeks. Residents can call on their recycling day for a bulk item pickup directly to Waste Management, and there is no fee to the resident. Of course, though, there is a fee to the city of Salem, and we have just kind of been covering those fees, but there was a recent change within the state, Massachusetts state law regarding mattresses. Those can no longer be picked up and disposed of by Waste Management, because Waste Management picks up bulk items and incinerates them. Due to toxic elements of old mattresses, those can no longer be incinerated due to state law, so they need to go to a recycler, I believe, who takes the mattress and disposes of them properly. So the fee for that is of $50 a mattress, so a single piece, a single mattress or bottom, the box spring, plus an additional fee for a bag, which is required to wrap around the mattress, which we haven't quite finalized the cost of that, but it ranges anywhere from, I think it was between $5 and $10 is where it's going to end up. So all in, each mattress item costs about $60. So for some context of those numbers, in November, October, September, the number of bulk items that were picked up in the city, September was 1,000, November was 800. I'm sorry, October was 827, November was 784. In November, there were also 144 mattresses picked up. So it's not a small number, and it's not a small fee to for the city to absorb. So Janelle ran some numbers with Dave Knowlton along with our contract that we have with Waste Management and felt that $20 per item was a reasonable cost. She also presented numbers, and they were included with our backup documentation of what surrounding towns and communities charge. $20 was definitely on the lower end of what other towns and communities charged. And I also pointed out that there are many other towns and communities that don't even offer this as a service. I know I have family or relatives kind of all down 114, and it's not even a service that you could pay for through the town and municipality. You're essentially responsible for disposing of your bulk items. Additional items that we talked about in the committee would be what would be the process for this being released out to the community. Code red alerts were talked about. Janelle, who's the new waste reduction coordinator, is great with getting out into the community, going to neighborhood meetings, updating the website of how items can be reduced and reused. We have many buy nothing groups within our city, free cycles. I believe it's an old Yahoo item, the free cycle groups. We also have LifeBridge or other items that if an item still has life within it. I believe this change will hopefully shift our way of thinking to just put it on the curb and not have to deal with it, to maybe continue the life that these items have. Obviously, adding a fee to anything is never something that's taken lightly, and there was a lot of discussion around that. But we felt overall that changing mindset as a society of disposing items really does need to change, and this is a reasonable fee to assess for these bulk items that do need to be disposed of.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. On adoption of the adoption for first passage, this is not a roll call, right? Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further committee reports. Councilor Riccardi.
City of Salem, December 8th, 2022, and City Council, the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, to who it was referred, the matter of granting of certain licenses, secondhand valuables, Eco ATM at 2 locations, has considered said matter and would recommend these be granted.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? On adoption of the recommendation, any discussion? On adoption of the recommendation, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further committee reports, Councilor Riccardi.
City of Salem and City Council, December 8th, 2022, the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, to whom it was referred, the matter of carrying matters forward, has considered said matter and would recommend carrying 2 matters over. Carrying the 2 matters forward, then the committee report shall state that Rule 31B be suspended so the matters may be carried into the new year of 2023.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, Council President. So we did meet and roll through the items that were still within on the OLA committee this year. We had 2 that we voted on to move into next year. One of them, we actually have a meeting next Monday evening to discuss the home business ordinance, co-post it with Committee of the Whole. So we, of course, want to roll that into 2023, and also an ordinance to amend Greenlawn Cemetery form of deed for sale of new lots. These will be included on the report.
Any further discussion? On adoption of the recommendation, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. For the committee reports, Councilor McLean.
In City Council, December 8th, 2022, the Committee on Community and Economic Development, to whom was referred the matter of carrying matters forward, has considered said matter and would recommend that Rule 31B be suspended so that one single item may be carried into the new year of 2023.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, Council President. Just one single item being carried forward. It's item 658, which just was introduced into the committee a few weeks ago, which is a meeting to discuss Haunted Happenings 2022 with our various interested entities in the city, and it's co-posted with the Committee of the Whole.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on adoption of the recommendation, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. For the committee reports, Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, President Morcillo. In City Council, December 8th, 2022, the Committee on Government Services, to whom was referred the matter of carrying matters forward, has considered said matter and recommend that Rule 31B be suspended so that 7 matters be carried forward into the new year of 2023.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, President Morcillo. We just had first, I guess I want to thank the Government Services Committee. We held over the course of the last year 15 meetings, and then 15 meetings the year prior, so that's 30 more meetings that were held in the previous 2 years, I think. So just a lot of controversial topics came before Government Services, things like trash, dirt bikes, pedestrian safety, flag raisings. I found that Government Services really gave a great place, if for no other reason than to be a public place to discuss issues that are controversial or issues that people just want to hear about and want to hear from city officials about. Appreciate the members of the committee. We've got just a few matters that we're carrying forward, including the personnel board that we discussed earlier, the land acknowledgement, which is still in progress, the traffic violence issue, cultural council, which we'll talk about in a minute, trash pickup, meeting with the public art director to discuss some interpretive signage for this chamber, and the relocation of the Andrew Jackson portrait, and the rest were discharged.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on adoption of the recommendation, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further committee reports, Councilor Hopworth.
Thank you, President Morcillo. In City Council, December 8th, 2022, the Committee on Government Services, to whom was referred the matter of appointing a liaison to the Cultural Council, has considered said matter and would recommend adoption. On
acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, Madam President. This oversight was on me from the meeting that we had about the flag raising this past summer. We had a very hearty discussion on the flag raising, and that's the only thing that made it into the committee report after that. And we noticed as we were carrying matters forward that the recommendation on the Cultural Council liaison didn't make it into that committee report. So we did have a letter from the city solicitor, actually from Vicki Caldwell, the assistant city solicitor, just sort of discussing the legality of a liaison for the Cultural Council. She noted that it was a public body and was eligible for a liaison. So we did vote in that meeting on August 10th to recommend that the council appoint a liaison.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on adoption of the recommendation, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further committee reports, Councilor Presnewski.
Thank you, President Morcillo. City of Salem and City Council, December 8th, 2022. Committee on Public Health, Safety, Environment, to whom was referred the matter of carrying matters forward, has considered said matter and would recommend that Rule 31B be suspended so that 3 enclosed matters may be carried into the new year of 2023.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, President Morcillo. The committee has chosen to carry 3 matters forward. Number 423, which is to meet with James Davis from Bay Staters and Natural Medicines to discuss legalizing certain plant medicines, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole. Number 461, meeting to discuss noise pollution, car stereos, motorcycles, and any potential actions to help mitigate, also co-posted with the Committee of the Whole. And number 502, meet to discuss plastics reuse and an option for city projects. I would also like to thank the committee. We had many meetings this year, I think more than most past historic public health, safety, and environment committees. I'd like to thank them for their input, the cohesiveness that the committee had, and the genuine desire to make positive changes. So my hat's off to you for doing what you did. Thank you.
On adoption of the recommendation, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Councilor McCarthy.
Council Masillo.
City of Salem and City Council, December 8th, 2022. The Committee of the Whole was referred the matter of reviewing City Council rules and orders, has considered said matter, and would recommend adoption as amended.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion, Council Masillo.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we had 2 sessions, several hours going through the rules, which I really think needs to happen on a more regular basis, and I think probably will happen again next year at the end of the year, because we voted to change to Robert's Rules of Order. Woo! So no more Cushings. I was going to bring my Cushings book too, and then I forgot it.
I have one.
So we have a lot of changes in here, which the good city clerk is going to make real. And I want to thank her, and I want to thank Ms. Renard and everyone on the committee for the suggestions. We had some really good discussions. And I note that the Dean of the Council has started using the new council president or president as opposed to the gendered version of it, which was one of the other big changes, I think, to modernize the rules. Generally, throughout, we have officially gotten rid of the stand up to speak, and have made the language gender neutral. We've made other edits here and there. There's just a lot. But the biggie, I think, is the Robert's Rules of Order, which means that really next year, as we're coming up to speed on it, we could probably remove some of these rules that we've kind of written on top of Cushing's. So that is that. This is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, so I'm glad we got through it. It has been tried in the past and with not a whole lot of luck. So thank you, everyone, for your help on this.
And just for clarity, we'll be adopting those in the first meeting in January, because the first meeting in January, we adopt the rules so that the council shall follow for the year. So it's great that we get it done now.
We're going to vote on the amendments,
Right.
though.
Yep. So on adoption of the recommendation, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Further committee reports. Councilor Masillo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me find the right one here. City of Salem. In City Council, December 8th, 2022. The Committee of the Whole has referred the matter of carrying matters forward, has considered said matter, and would recommend that Rule 31B be suspended so that the following list of items can be carried over into the new year of 2023.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor, all those opposed. On adoption of the recommendation, on discussion, Councilor Masillo.
Thank you, Mr. President. So it was agreed that we would carry forward the Destination Salem presentation, because we did not get to that, but it's going to dovetail nicely with the other item in committee, in one of the committees. Community and Economic Development to talk about the October season. So we'll do Destination Salem first, and then we'll do that larger meeting. We also moved to carry over meeting to discuss ARPA funds and the program because it's ongoing, and so we have this in committee, and we can bring in that group anytime we wish. Also, the presentation on the proposed offshore wind marshaling facility. Again, we'll keep this in committee so that we can bring them in to get updates. And then finally, the framework for tenant protection ordinance is still under discussion. And I do want to say that this was something new this year, this committee of the whole. I think in general, this worked as I had anticipated and hoped for. I think we had some really good discussion. It was a nice way to bring in presentations instead of bringing them into the city council meetings so that we have fewer 4-hour meetings. But yeah, thank you, everyone.
Anyone else? Seeing none, on adoption of the recommendation, all is in favor, all is opposed? Matter carries.
Communications from city officials.
We have the following order submitted by the city solicitor relative to the council approving a Massachusetts conflict of interest law exemption for James Rogers.
Council Riccardi.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that this be adopted.
Council Riccardi moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you, Council President. This is in accordance with Mass General Law. As City of Salem employee that works in another department, we need to have approval from the City Council. Mr. Rogers is an employee of the Salem Public Schools who will be doing independent contractor work for the Gardens Project by the Park, Rec, and Community Services Department.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption, all those in favor, all those opposed, the matter carries. Petitions.
We have a petition from Attorney Joseph Carenti on behalf of Salem Wind Terminal to rezone a parcel located at 67 Derby Street from residential to family to industrial. The zoning and ordinance amendment, map change, the map number, and the parcel ID number has been submitted.
Council Riccardi.
Thank you, Council President. I move that this be referred to the Planning Board to hold a joint public hearing.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam President. Briefly, I talked to Attorney Carenti on this. This is actually something that, just to relieve any questions on this one, this area is already contained within the fence line of the property. It came up discussions a bunch of years ago, and I brought it to the new owners, Crowley's, attention when they were going through their phase of permitting for this facility, that up in the corner closest to the houses as you enter into the Blaney Street property, it appears that they were two former house lots back in the day, and they're located between the last existing house on Derby Street and the existing street of India Street that kind of stops and goes nowhere right at the fence line. For those of you who don't know, that the power plant property, actually, they own out to the sidewalk. They've agreed to maintain that green buffer area and tree line up to the fence, but these two parcels, or this parcel, is located up in that corner. It's already existing, being used as power plant property. They're not looking to take any additional properties. It's just to make it consistent so that all the property would be zoned the same, and it's already located within the DPA, so it's just a matter of as I always like to call it, is dotting the i's and crossing the t's. Mm-hmm. And so that's why they're bringing it in, just so for clarity, if anyone has any questions out that's reading this and thinking that they're trying to acquire more property. They're not. It's already their existing property. They're just trying to zone it to match everything else that they have.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion to refer to the planning board to hold a joint public hearing, all those in favor, all those opposed, the matter carries. Further petitions.
We have a petition from National Grid to install one jointly owned pole on Pope Street. This has been a change of location from the last meeting.
Hearing ordered January 12th, 2023. Further petitions.
We have one contract operated drain layer license application.
Councilor Riccardi.
Thank you, Madam President. I can't move my agenda quick enough. I move that these be granted.
Councilor Riccardi moves that these be granted. Any discussion? Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to thank Bernice for their good work keeping the Willow Ave sewer pipe standing for now.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion that this be granted, all those in favor, all those opposed, the matter carries. Further petitions.
We have the following 6 claims.
Council Riccardi.
Thank you, Council President. I move that these be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs.
Council Riccardi moves that these be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs. All those in favor, all those opposed, the matter carries. Further petitions.
We have 1 drain layer bond.
Council Riccardi.
Thank you, Council President. I move that this be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs and returned approved.
Council Riccardi moves that these be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs and returned approved. All those in favor, all those opposed, the matter carries. Unfinished business.
We have the second passage of an ordinance amending traffic, Chapter 42, Section 50B, handicap zone limited time to repeal the handicap parking in front of 27 Barstow Street.
Council Riccardi.
Thank you, Council President. I move that this be adopted for second and final passage.
Council Riccardi moves for adoption for second and final passage. All those in favor, all those opposed, the matter carries. Further unfinished business.
We have a second passage of an ordinance amending traffic, Chapter 42, Section 50B, handicap zone in front of number 15 Conan Street.
Council Merkel.
Thank you, President Marcillo. I move for adoption for second and final passage.
Council Merkel moves for adoption for second and final passage. All those in favor, all those opposed, the matter carries. Further unfinished business.
We have a second passage of an ordinance amending traffic, Chapter 42, Section 50B, handicap zone in front of number 3 Ocean Avenue.
Council Cohen.
Thank you, President Morcillo. I move that this is adopted for second and final passage.
Council Cohen moves for adoption for second and final passage. All those in favor, all those opposed, the matter carries. Further unfinished business.
We have a second passage of an ordinance amending traffic, Chapter 42, Section 50B, handicap zone in front of number 42 Essex Street.
Council McCarthy.
I move for second and final passage.
Council McCarthy moves for adoption for second and final passage. All those in favor, all those opposed, the matter carries. I would like to take a few minutes. What a year, huh? Just going to say that right off the bat. So this is the last scheduled meeting. The last scheduled meeting, please.
No one sign an order that comes in front of them that says you need 6 signatures for another meeting.
So I just want to take a few minutes to thank all of you for all the work that you've done. You know, my goal this year coming in was to modernize the process and clean up the rules and keep items moving through the committees, and generally to keep a respectful environment for our meetings. We added the committee of the whole to allow for better, more impactful discussions on the larger items and to allow all members to make amendments to in the committees. The work of the city council really happens in the committees, and so that's why that's important. So I think it's working. I think it's probably something that should have been done a while ago, but I feel like we're much more focused in our meetings right now. We moved to hybrid meetings this year. That was quite a challenge, and I want to take a minute to thank the city clerk and the assistant city clerk and the guys behind the door at SATV and Ollie and his team and everybody who helped get this up and running. And we still run into a few glitches every now and then, but it's working, and we have increased access for people who want to be here in the room or want to be with us through Zoom, and that's huge. That is huge. And it feels like every time we come in here, we have one little glitch, and we figure out that glitch, and then we move on to the next one. So it's been a challenge, but it's been good. I know that I've been pushing the committees to get things through, but I feel really strongly that we all worked very hard to be in this room, and so we need to make the most of our time here and get things done as they come to us. And then I think we need to take a minute to reflect on the historic place that we are in right now with the mayor moving on to the lieutenant governor's position and the next year is going to be a challenge as well. But as the good Ward 1 counselor said to me, there are 50 lieutenant governors in the country, and our mayor from our great little city of Salem is going to be one of them, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And I think it's a testament to how much Salem has done over the years and how we're growing, and we seem to be doing the right things and things that people respect in the state. And to that end, our next meeting is January 4th at 6 o'clock. The public is invited to this reorganization meeting. The agenda is to reorganize this group, which means electing a new president. We'll be voting on the rules of the council, which is where we'll switch to the stuff that we've just worked on. The mayor will be giving her final State of the City address. And then right after that, she will be stepping down. And then the council will be electing one of our own members to be the acting mayor. And I want to make it as clear as I can that we are all working very hard to make this transition smooth. I mean, we're trying to make it as smooth a transition as possible, and we've been working for a while. The city clerk, the city solicitor, the dean of the council, Councilor McCarthy, and I have been meeting to work through the kinks and set up the agenda for the special meeting or not the special meeting, the reorg meeting, and get that home rule petition through. And we've been getting email messages from Representative Tucker's office that it is moving through. The last one I just read was from him himself, and it's still moving through. Fingers are still crossed that this is going to be done by the end of the year. And if that does happen, and if we can get everything lined up at that reorg meeting, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to talk about a date for the special election. So that's the plan. Hopefully that will happen. So again, the public is invited to that reorg meeting, and you know, it's one of the meetings that doesn't have a huge agenda, and it's a lot of inside business, inside baseball that's going on here, but it's, you know, it's important. And finally, in honor of, well, first of all, thank you all for the committee chairs and everything. Really, we got a lot of work done this year. And finally, in honor of our new council rules for next year, I have a gift for everyone.
This ought to be good.
Your own version of Robert's Rules of Order.
Look at that. The gift that keeps on giving.
So.
Look at that. Wow.
So I'm not sure if this is the official one that we'll use. It's one of the most recent ones, and I also want to let people know that we are working on training. The city clerk and I were speaking a couple days ago, and the woman that came to do the parliamentary procedure training earlier this year in January knows Robert's rules and learned Cushing's in order to do that meeting, and so she will be very helpful in order to train us. So I'll get you one. I'm sorry. So that's it. So happy reading. Anything further? Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Marcillo, and I want to thank you, too, for your leadership over the last year, and I agree that the COW worked out really, really well, and I want to thank the clerk and the assistant clerk for, as a new counselor, your help in getting up and running almost a year ago, and all my colleagues on the council. This is just an incredible council, and it's been an amazing experience, and it's very much appreciated.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Riccardi.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to extend my thank yous to the council president and to the body this year. I was floored when I walked in this year and realized that this time last year, the tax meeting last year was still remote. just the amount of change that we have gone through in these past 12 months, the amount of, I mean, yeah, the committee reports, we got a lot through, and all of our committees were very busy, but just, it was a wild year. Like, we went from fully remote to wasn't sure what was going to happen. We had a remote inauguration, and now here we are in chambers again, broadcasting remotely as well as on YouTube. So I just want to say thanks to everyone that helped make that possible, everyone that replied to my little messages, and I appreciate the work and the effort that went into it, and we can only continue to move forward. And of course, you get to a certain step and you just want more and more and more. So I'm excited for moving forward and continuing to do that. But thank you very much for the job well done.
Councilor Hepworth.
Thank you, President Morcillo. And I want to echo a lot of those comments. Appreciate your leadership over the last year, and appreciate this council. I think that if you look at this versus previous years, I don't think there was any less disagreement on this council than we've had in previous years. We still had a number of split votes. We still had arguments. We still had heated discussions. But the difference in this council, I think, over the last year is that I think there was a spirit of trust among the group that we could find solutions to problems, that we get work done in committees, that we could find compromises, that we could come to agreements when we were able to, and if we weren't, then we were able to move past those. And I just want to recognize that doesn't happen in everybody, and I'm sure that won't be the case at some point in the future, probably, but just appreciate this group of colleagues and the work that you put in over the last year.
Thank you. Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Council President. I completely echo the comments of the at-large councilor. I think I've been amazed for my own part how much I have learned in these chambers from my colleagues here, and the intelligence, the integrity, the commitment of the people in this room has really been an incredible experience to be a part of. I think it's amazing to think about how many of us had never been in these seats before this year started, and to see where things have gone, and to see the way that our elder colleagues embraced us, and to see the amount of work we just got done. And I think, the reality is we live in some very changing times, right? And there's a lot of anxiety out there about what's going to come next for our community and our country and the world at large. And we've seen a lot of examples of people in leadership positions who have not been able to rise above, people who have not been able to show the integrity that we always need, and we've seen the way it really drives divisions into communities. And Salem is not immune from those anxieties, but I think the way we have worked here is a real example of the fact that we can disagree, we can have different perspectives, we can have different experiences, but we can work together as long as we are focused on the care of our community. And I think that's going to be so critical for us going forward into this next year. And I would just encourage all of my colleagues to keep that spirit, and to keep that spirit boiling in our community, because it's going to be so critical for us moving forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? Council McCarthy.
You didn't think I was going to say something, did you? First of all, I just want to say I just happened to flip this new book I just got open, and it says right here in Table E, words to use as a member, and it says to obtain recognition to speak. It says Member A, Madam President. Wow, look at that! The Robert's Rules allows you to use the word Madam President. Anyway, and as I respect the rules and all the actions that the council takes, and I've had this conversation with the president and other members. I mean, we joked about it at the beginning, and Councilor Riccardi likes to refer to me as the old guy, and so I affectionately took on the OG of the CC, which is fine, and when it comes to the Robert's Rules, it was the time. Because in years past, there's always been some reluctance to change the rules because of the makeup of the council, and I know you guys jab me once in a while about being the old guy, but I have been around a while, and I did learn the rules that way. But I also realized that there was some things that could be corrected and needed to be done, and now is the proper time, because I'm the oldest guy using them, and you guys, I shouldn't say that, the rest of my colleagues are, you're passionate and you're engaged, and I think it just is, the ability to use a new set of rules is just going to help that process and make it more readily apparent to members of the public how they can participate and what they can expect out of a meeting. I want to thank all my colleagues for everything they've done this year. I want to wish everyone a happy and safe holiday season. As we, this next month gets extremely busy, and we've all, get pushed and pulled in different directions with, with our personal lives and with our public lives. People invite us to events and do certain things. And as I always say, and I always encourage people to make sure you take the time for your family, because colleagues that have sat in this room before me always reminded me that we spend, when you really think about it, sometimes we spend, the amount of time we spend with each other in this room sometimes exceeds the amount of time we have to spend with some of our families. So when you do get that opportunity, I really encourage everyone to take that time and spend it with their family, because that is, as important as the work as we do here, the time that we spend with our families is even more important, because they're the ones that support us and allow us to do this critical work. And all that being said, now I'm going to turn my focus on the president. Council President Morcillo. Notice how I said that?
Am I being roasted here?
No, you're not being roasted. No, we could roast her. We could do a roast. With all seriousness, everyone, I echo all the comments that have been made just previous to my own. And you really think about it, when we started this year and where we've come, a couple of years when we started the pandemic, a lot of us didn't even know what Zoom was, and I know I didn't. And then we flipped the switch and were able to do that. Then we would go through election, and then unfortunately, what should have been a very happy day for everyone who just spent all that time getting elected to celebrate with their families, we had to have an inauguration that was remote. But I want to say to my colleagues, and I just say for myself, but I think I speak sentiments for the rest of us, I think the smartest thing we did was elect you as council president. I think that your leadership during this year has been unprecedented. I personally was impressed with everything you did the year prior with the OLA committee. I think that the amount of work and effort that you put into that committee really made it, for me, a no-brainer who was going to be elected as our president coming in, because you took the bull by the horns. You set us forth an agenda that you wanted to achieve, both for the council and for yourself, with regards to how the council was going to conduct itself, and you did that admirably, and you did that very well. And I want to just also thank you this year for your friendship, because I can't tell you how many times I would have to call the council president up. I wanted to say Patty, but I corrected myself. I'd call her up, and we would have those frank discussions about what needed to get done and how we were going to do it. And you alluded to the fact, I want to give kudos once again to the clerks, both Eileen and Maureen, and everybody who works in the clerk's department, as well as to Beth, because we know what kind of work has been going in over the last couple of months. We haven't been living in a vacuum with regards to what was going on with the mayor and what was going to be happening in the state. And that's why, we were asking those questions months in advance to get those answers, to make sure that come January 4th, that we will be poised to make that transition. And I will just say, during that transition, this council will be relied on heavily to step up and assist in the leadership role in order to, until that void in such a time as a mayor is elected by the public. All that being said, once again, thank you, because I really don't think that anyone else could have done what you did this year. And I want to thank you for every time that, I always say it, I'm an Apple guy, and I start using these things, and I'm like clicking the wrong side of the mouse, doing all sorts of things, and I don't know what's going on. But the fact that you were able to, get us through some of those technological things, and when the fact that we were able to develop a hybrid approach that allowed us to get back into this room in person, and I am extremely glad that I decided to run for re-election, to come back to this room, and to be able to experience this council and your leadership. And I can't say that enough, so thank you. And we got you.
Thank you.
We get you a little gift.
Oh.
No, and it's not a book. It's not a box of Robert's Rules either. It's cushions.
Oh, am I? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Everybody's looking at me, huh? I know. Who wrapped this? Maureen did. Oh, it's a box. Aww. Aww. That's my name on it. Trisha Marcello, Council President. Ooh. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate it. This has really been a great year for me, too. I've learned a lot. Council McCarthy.
With that, in all due respect and admiration, Madam President, I ask for adjournment.
Council McCarthy moves to adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.